We have such a crowd, it hardly seems like it's 12:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the August 24th meeting of the Board of Directors of the Cambria Community Services District. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We do have a quorum. All of our directors are here today. Do we have a report from closed session?
Nothing to report. At your last regular meeting, you had performance evaluations for me and for General Manager Gruber.
Thank you very much. Agenda review. I do have one addition that I would like to add to the agenda. Mr. Carmel, can you help me through this, how we do this?
Absolutely. That's the letter of support that's been handed out.
Yes.
Okay. There is a method under Government Code Section 954.2B2 to address this situation. In order to add this to the agenda by a 4/5 vote, you'll have to find that there's a need to take immediate action, and that the need to take action, the fact of the need to take action, came to the attention of the district subsequent to the posting of the agenda, which was on Friday at 12:30. As I understand, it was later that afternoon that the Salinas Upper Las Tablas Resource Conservation District asked that we write a letter of support for a Prop 1 grant for a program entitled Santa Rosa Creek In-Stream Flow Augmentation Pilot Project that is proposed by Central Coast Salmon Enhancement. So you'd have to make a motion essentially saying need to take action. The need came to the attention of the district subsequent to the posting the agenda, and then have a 4/5 vote.
Okay. So I would take a motion to that effect to place this item on the agenda and that those findings are the case.
I so move, exactly as the general counsel articulated it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Behringer. And we'll take the item up as the final item before we adjourn today. Is there a specific order? We don't have to put it.
You can take it in any order. It would be item 6E on
Okay.
the business agenda.
Okay. Is there any discussion? We need to have a 4/5 vote for this to go on to the agenda as 6E. Can we have a roll call? Director Behringer.
Vice President Sanders,
Aye.
Director Behringer,
Aye.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Director Thompson,
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye. So that will be item 6E is the letter of support regarding the grant for the Upper Las Tablas, Salinas Upper Las Tablas Resource Conservation District. Thank you. I appreciate that. Get this thing done. All right. Is there, I don't know.
I don't know if you want to trade, because it works its way around.
I have never had it, so I don't know. Are there any other additions or deletions on the agenda that anyone has? All right. Then let's go to public comment. This is for public comment for items not on the agenda. And I didn't announce it earlier, but if you have a phone, please silence it just so that it doesn't ring in the middle of somebody else speaking. So public comment, we're going to start with Mel Doran, followed by Tina Dickinson.
Little green light. There you go.
Okay, this is more in the nature of a question to the board. Recently, we had a pretty serious fire, which resulted in an evacuation alert. Referencing that, about a year ago, Chief Hollingsworth sent a memo to Jerry Gruber advising him that we were in violation of California Fire Code and NFPA code. We have 357 fire hydrants in this county, in this district rather. The rumor is that only 30 or 30 some odd have been tested so far. To me, that sounds like we haven't complied. We're still in violation. We've got the fire season coming up. In fact, we have a fire alert this week from the weather department, which is warning Southern California, southwestern California of the imminent danger of fire because of the heat and the humidity. So the question I have is, apparently since this hasn't been done in almost a year, what's the plan for the contingency that some of these hydrants are not going to work since they haven't been tested? And I assume the testing is something that's in the law because it's necessary. So I don't know who's going to answer the question, but we certainly do need some action on this now.
Thank you, Mr. Dorn. Tina Dickinson, followed by Elizabeth Bettenhausen, and we'll address that question at the end of public comment. Ms. Dickinson?
Is that, okay. Tina Dickinson. I wasn't at the last board meeting, but I did take the time to watch it. And I'm reading more and more letters in the Cambrian. I'm talking to more and more folks in town. And what this comes down to me, is that this district is not capable, whether it be the board or management, of running this district. Spending is totally out of control. Your ideas of spending money for a rundown piece of property when we can least afford it, it defies logic. It defies any kind of common sense. And I don't honestly get it. Are we just trying to satisfy the county and Mr. Gibson? Is that what this is about for $405,000? This is going to end up costing $1.5 million because nothing ever is at the cost that you guys say it will be, or just about anybody when there's a projection for something. We cannot afford it. You have the nerve to tell the regional board that you can't afford to do anything except evaporate the pond. But you can go down the street and say, oh, we need this building with 7 parking spaces. It is absolutely ridiculous. We deserve better in this town. And you're right, Mr. Sanders, when you say the day of reckoning is fast approaching. I think the day of reckoning for this board is fast approaching.
Please address
for
the
management.
president. Thank you.
Okay, so my eyes wandered. Sorry about that. But it is really, really unbelievable. You are not doing a good job, both board and management. And this town is not going to keep sustaining you. I can see the writing on the wall. Try another rate increase. Try your great big rate increase. We just had 116% over a 5-year period, and now you're talking about another one. So while you spend money without thinking twice or asking the public how they feel about it, then you decide, oh, we'll just go to the public. We'll ask them because they're our forever pot of gold that we can keep spending. Well, you know what? It's not going to happen. I predict it will not happen, so think twice about before you sign on the dotted line for that project or for that piece of that building that needs a lot of work. You don't need it right now, and we cannot afford it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dickinson. Elizabeth Bettenhausen is my final request to speak on public comment. If anybody else would like to make a comment, please get your card in now.
Thank you, Madam President. I noticed that it's not possible to change the aura of the room. I regret that a lot, but as you know, I wrote to you and the management after the last meeting, and I want to make clear, people thought I was sort of in a bad mood at the last meeting or something. Photosensitive epilepsy is a serious condition, which I have, and I'm glad that the fans are off, although it could get rather warm in here depending upon the debate. So I urge you to consider the possibility of opening the windows. That's certainly, I tried to lift some shades in the back, checking with the video people, but I can't get them to stay up. So I'm going to hang out behind the coffee pot. And if it looks like I'm just avoiding the whole thing, I'm not. But I cannot sit here with the problems I articulated unless you want to see a rather intriguing epileptic fit in your meeting, which would be a little too dramatic on my part, I think. But I want to raise one other issue, and that is, I want you, Madam President, to allow the possibility in this agenda somewhere for Director Sanders, the Vice President, to respond to what I wrote to him, asking him to clarify his comments at the last meeting. I wrote this on the 12th of August and have not heard back from Director Sanders. I would really appreciate it if somehow the board, in your deliberation later, and I'll be here looking at goals, could ask the question more specifically and thoroughly about how directors and management communicate with the public when the public makes inquiries. I have other ways of asking that, but I think I was really concerned to do the transcript of this conversation last time, and I was concerned because it makes it sound like we are on the verge of a serious crisis. Unfortunately, the nature of the crisis is not stipulated. So that's like getting a warning, sort of like Art Van Ryn's cartoon today. You can accidentally step in a pocket gopher hole if you're looking at the eclipse. Well, we can step in all sorts of holes here, and I won't describe them, if we are not paying careful attention to what exactly we're communicating to each other and to the community on your part. I would like a very clear statement about what that warning was about, and I do not have it yet, so I just alert you all to the possibility of making it possible to receive one at some point in the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Christine Heinrich. Oh, this is for, not for public comment. Yeah, this is for 5C. Okay.
Hello, thank you for opening this to public comment. We have a report now from the Regional Water Quality Control Board that the evaporation option is not, as they told the board in their meeting, that evaporation of the contaminated water in the impoundment pond is not an option. Yet the staff recommended that as the only alternative. Now Cambria is faced with a continuing struggle over this mess and a $13 million water project that can't operate. Regardless, extension of letters of intent to serve are on the agenda for today. One of them is mentioned in the background that the general manager, at his discretion, was able to extend the letter of intent to serve for a house up in Lemert. Now, as I understand it, it's because this involves only one EDU. However, the EDU is assigned per single-family residence. This is a single-family residence, but an EDU is usually considered 6 units per month, 1 unit being 748 gallons. This particular single-family house plans to use 22 units per month, more than 3 times the amount that's usually accorded to a single-family home. I question how the general manager can, at his discretion, extend an intent to serve letter for such an excessive water use. How did this property receive a building permit? When the board discusses new housing construction, current Cambria residents may envision this as the construction of 3-bedroom, 2-bath family homes or vacation cabins, but that is not what will be built. We can look forward to more 7,000 square foot mansions using much more water than Cambrians have typically used. Thank you.
Thank you. Last one on public comment, John Steinbrenner?
Just like it's spelled. My name is John Steinbrenner. I've lived in Cambria. October would be 21 years, so I'm not exactly a newcomer. My background is finance. I was in it for over 40 years. And I've learned in that and also in my own lifetime that you don't buy what you can't pay for. I was very pleased to see Ms. Rice and Mr. Farmer file an objection to the purchase of this property down the street. This is only a town of 6,000 people, and I just can't get straight in my mind with my background how this town can afford to put out that kind of money for a piece of property that probably needs a lot of work on it to bring it up to standards that we will need in this town. So I just wanted to tell you that as a Cambria resident, I feel that we should not in any way be involved in this piece of property. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. General Manager Gruber, do you want to speak to the hydrant issue?
Yes, Madam President. Do you want me to, I can, just that particular issue, or?
Yeah, just that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the origin of this question goes really back to the grand jury report, if you recall, several years back, and the CCSD has worked diligently to address a lot of those issues within that grand jury report. One of which was, well, there were several of them. The replacement of the new fire truck, the additional staffing on an engine, which we've done, aggressively addressing the dead and dying trees within the community, which we've done through grants. The eucalyptus project is an example of that. This has been going on the ranch right now. And the fourth component was the testing of fire hydrants. We were in a stage 3 for a significant period of time, and our response to the grand jury stated that we would start testing fire hydrants again. If you recall, Chief Hollingsworth at the last CCSD Board of Directors meetings indicated that the fire hydrant testing is going rather well. And we have approximately 365, and as of last month, he had tested 10% of those, and he anticipates having them all done within a 1-year period of time. So since last board meeting, he had tested 10%, and I'm sure, knowing Chief Hollingsworth and the fire department, they've probably done quite a bit more than that. Captain Emily will be able to maybe talk a little bit more about that. So we're doing a pretty, what I consider a pretty progressive fire hydrant testing program right now. We haven't run into, surprisingly, we haven't run into any significant problems. In addition to testing them, flow testing them, they're clearing the weeds out. They're lubricating the caps, so in the event of a fire, they come off a lot easier. They're sandblasting the fire hydrants and painting them. So it's a combination of a lot of things that they're doing regarding the fire hydrants. A while back, there was I call it an urban legend maybe, or there's some concerns associated with the overwhelming majority of the fire hydrants were not working or haven't been tested in a while. It's true they hadn't been tested in a while for good reason, but we're finding that the ones that were being tested are completely operational, and that the community really doesn't have to or should not be concerned about the reliability of those fire hydrants based on what the fire department's doing. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Vice President Sanders.
I have a question. Maybe the staff can answer this. Where did the estimate of 22 units of water for this Lamert subdivision house come from?
I'd have to have some more information.
It's the building permit. It's the building. I remember seeing it on an application.
The building permit says that the house will use 22 units of water?
They estimate their use will be 22. It's on the application.
Which house are you talking about?
Can somebody get a copy of that building permit to the district? Okay.
And based on that, we'll get an answer to the public on that one,
Great.
Director Sanders. Yeah, if there's an address, that would be extremely helpful too. So 660 Evelyn Court. Okay, staff will look into that, and we won't wait till next board meeting. We'll get an answer for the board and for the community immediately regarding that. So.
Thank you.
Madam President, I'd also like to respond to Ms. Bettenhausen. My response is just read the water master plan, the urban water master plan that was adopted last year. Everything I said is in the urban water master plan.
I just have a brief public announcement, and then we'll move on to the next item. The There's going to be a Coastal Discovery Fair and 25th anniversary celebration of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary this Saturday from 11 to 4 at Hearst San Simeon State Park. It's a free event, and you're welcome. Children of all ages are welcome, free admission. There'll be live animals rehabilitated that are rehabilitated animals. There's going to be activities for kids, and several folks. Jean-Michel will be there, and Greg Haas will be there, and Bruce Gibson is supposed to come. So there's going to be a lot of folks out there. And if you want more information, you can either contact me or the Coastal Discovery Center, which is up at the Hearst San Simeon State Park by San Simeon Bay. Thank you. Next up is Public Safety. Sheriff, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam President and fellow board members. Jim Vogue from the Commanding Officer of Coast Station. This last month, we're looking pretty good. As far as calls for service, we're down pretty significantly to 74 from 108 before. Our suspicious circumstances, criminal acts subjects went down to 14 from 22 the month before. 0 reported phone scams, which is kind of a pet peeve of mine because too many good people are taken advantage of. Check the welfares even went down over 50% from 6 to 14 before. A couple notable incidents. A couple was going on vacation, contacted rover.com. This isn't a bad mouth of rover.com, but just kind of the factual basis on this. Rover.com provides house sitters, and they contracted with them and got a house sitter. When they came back, they found that there were $600 to $700 missing. They didn't know the house sitter. They interviewed her before they left. She talked about how her and her boyfriend were homeless, and then they're just trying to get back on their feet again. And, you know, there's certain things that, and as I said, this is an important thing, particularly in the summer months, that you definitely, if you have somebody sitting in your house that you know them or trust somebody that refers them to you. And we also have vacation checks that we do. All you have to do is call the sheriff's office and we can schedule vacation checks. So just something to keep aware of. 800 block of Sheffield on the 3rd of August, an elderly woman hired a man to help her with her household chores. She's got some disabilities and she needed help with doing laundry and cleaning around. At one point she gave the man her keys to go to her house because she forgot when she went to the washer and dryer location that she forgot her coins. He went back. She found out later that $140 was missing, which obviously was a lot of money for her, and she terminated his employment there. We contacted him later on. He denied that he did this, but he was in possession of methamphetamine at the time, and he went to jail for that. He's kind of known to us as someone that is off and on homeless, transient, and methamphetamine user. I believe he's on probation because that allowed us to do a probation search on him. So another thing, just a warning, you know, he probably went cheap to help, but it's very very important to get people that you really know or trust. We have too many good souls in this community. And I don't say that, you know, I'm trying, as I said, too many trusting people in this community. And it's great that we live in a community with this type of people in it. I live in here myself, but it's just very important on this before you trust somebody to your home, to your belongings, that you know something about them. 300 block of Bristol Street, talking about trusting people. On the 21st and on the 500 block of Dorset Street, we had 2 car burglaries. Both of these car burglaries, the cars were unlocked. And when you see unlocked cars, what that tells me, instead of typical window smashes are more of a professional criminal, if you will. They look around, especially for purses, things of that nature, any valuables, do a window smash, get in and get out. When it's unlocked, it's usually more of a transient type nature, an opportunist type crime, where somebody just goes along the block, tries car doors, and finds out which one open. So my final message is to lock your cars. And that's all I have, if I have any questions at all.
Thank you. Do any board members have any questions?
I don't necessarily have a
Director
question.
Farmer?
Oh, thank you. I don't necessarily have a question, but this is a call that I received day before yesterday. I didn't answer the phone. I wasn't at the phone, but it says, this is from somebody in Las Vegas, Nevada. The IRS is filing a lawsuit against you. We need you or your retained attorney of record to return the call. The issue at hand is extremely time sensitive. Please call us immediately. And then they give the number, and then I repeat, thank you, the numbers. So they probably don't know that I drive a '67 Volkswagen and don't make a heck of a lot of money, but the IRS is after me anyway. So.
Well, maybe that 67's a classic. So, yeah, the IRS are very popular phone scams, and Apple has been recently because of the proliferation of iPhones. So a lot of people talk about your Apple contracts and et cetera.
Yes, General Manager Gruber?
Madam President, Board, I have a question for the commander. There seems to be a real progressive move in the community, especially amongst the new pastor up at the Presbyterian Church regarding mobilizing some folks in town on the homeless situation. Because of those efforts, do you feel there's some kind of correlation between the reduction in the reportable crimes versus those efforts? Are we starting to see the fruits of that labor or not quite yet? What's your thoughts? Because you were there at the first meeting when I was there, and he seems to really be taking this seriously and wanting to be able to address the issue here in town.
Yes, no, he's, a lot of people attended that meeting, a lot of people, including the Sheriff's Office and Commissioner Gibson, Supervisor Gibson was there. I think what they're trying to do is particularly a lot of homeless individuals, and you know what, I hate to stereotype homeless because that's not the right word. We have criminal transients, we have people that are just moving through and don't have a place to stay. We have our local transients or homeless people that never get in any trouble and that we know and we see. So we have a lot of different types. So, but when I focus on not just panhandlers, but maybe aggressive panhandlers or people that are really actually going to commit crimes. People that are trying the car doors and seeing if they're unlocked or not. So the churches have kind of a real irony about it because they're there to help people, and a lot of people get the word in the transient community to go to these places. And they go there and you like for them to go there and receive the services. The trouble with Cambria is, most of you know, with the exception of our couple public restrooms, we don't really have homeless services. So they find their ways into different areas, such as the fields and everything. So, that's going to happen. It's in all our communities, particularly along the coast. If you look at, we mentioned earlier that we're going to have a heat spell this weekend. I guarantee our heat spell is going to be a lot less than it is in Templeton and Paso this weekend. So you find a lot more congregation down here, particularly in the rural fields that we have here, because a lot of people don't find out. As I said, we focus on the crime, but as far as crimes go, they have been, I think that's a good observation on your part. It seems that they've gone down as far as crimes. I don't know if the homeless population has gone down, but at least the crimes have gone down. So I think people are more concerned about it. People are, we're a good homeless feeding territory here. And it's not just tourists, it's locals too. And, we, as I said, this is a community where, there's a lot of good people in here and a lot of trusting people. And it's me to be the untrusting person because that's my job. But, I think we just have to exercise caution in that and watch what we do. But I think that's a good idea. I think it's a step. It's not to ignore the problem. It's to how we can facilitate the problem or how to abate what we identify as a problem. And we also have our community action team out there that's dedicated, and I always call them in, to our homeless situation here. And they work on it all the time. And they try to get to the next step, try to get these people that are potentially chronically homeless and trying to get them into housing through veterans associations or whatever way they can. So, but it's a continual problem that we basically have to keep on working on. But thanks for mentioning that.
No one else? Thank you very
Okay,
much, Commander
thank you.
Vogt. Fire Department report, Cambria Community Services District Fire Department report, Captain Emily Torlano. It looks like we're going to have your report today.
Yes, hello. Chief asked me to do the report in his absence. He has another commitment. So hello, good afternoon, everybody. We'll start off with the responses. To date, we have a total of 642 emergency incidents for 2017. That is up from 2016, whereas of this date last year, we had 545. That's an increase of 17.4% in our call volume as of today. We had 2 mutual aid responses for vegetation fires. That's when other departments call us. And we had 6 automatic aid responses for vegetation fires in the month of July. I'm sure everyone's aware of the Bridge Street incident. This is important to point out. The mutual aid, anyone that saw the amount of resources that responded and how quickly they were there to aid us on that fire is really important to recognize. We have our safer firefighters on duty with us. We are now able to reciprocate that mutual aid response. So when other communities are in need, we then travel up to the city that needs our help. So we just want to thank all the other resources that were able to respond and point out the importance of auto and mutual aid responses. Our fire hazard fuel reduction program is coming to a close. The contractor is completing those outstanding contracts at this moment. Everything should be completed by the end of the month. We have Chief and our engineers will be traveling back to check on the new engine. It is still on schedule and plans to be in service before the end of October. So it's still right on schedule. We're looking forward to that. And also we have some public education news. We have, our department is celebrating its 140th anniversary. Cambria Fire was established in 1877 and we're housing an open house, tours, family, free barbecue on this Saturday. So before you go down to the Discovery Center, stop and have lunch with the firefighters. They'll be doing station tours, live fire demonstrations. You can sign up for smoke detector battery changes. You can sign up for home safety inspections, defensible space inspections. We're going to have other responders there as well. There'll be the Cambria Community Healthcare Ambulance. We'll have state parks there. Hopefully, Sheriff's Department will be there. CAL FIRE will be there, CERT will be there. So it's going to be a big fun event. There'll be a bounce house for the kids and a lot of kids swag and fire helmets and that sort of thing. So we encourage everyone to come, bring their families, and come celebrate our 140th anniversary. Oh, and of course there'll be cake. And in closing, we just wanted to talk to Director Thompson. He's retiring, and we wanted to express our gratitude and thank you for serving the community. You've always supported the fire department and emergency response in this community, and we appreciate your efforts in helping making Cambria a safe community. So thank you, and you will be missed. And that's it.
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you to, I don't know if it was done by the fire department or the healthcare district, but I got a flyer on my door from CERT that said, "Are you ready?" And it referred to the fire on the 18th. And it talked about the next CERT class that's coming up. Can you give those dates? Because I know it's going to be before our next meeting.
I don't have the CERT dates with me here.
How do people sign up if they want to go through the CERT training?
You can call the fire department directly, 927-6240, and we can help you with that. There will be CERT signups at our public education event on Saturday. They can sign up there in person.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it's real easy to sign up, and we can help them. It was CERT that put those flyers on the doors.
Thank you.
They did a good job.
Director Farmer?
Yes, Captain, I just want to ask you briefly, you just mentioned the event that's coming up this Saturday at the
Yes.
fire station, but you didn't give the times?
I apologize. It's from noon until 4 p.m. on Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
So you can come by anytime. There will be parking at the Presbyterian Church. They've offered up their parking for us, so we don't impact the neighbors too much.
Director Thompson?
Yes, Captain Torlano, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate the thought. Fire department has always been very important to this community. Just one question, though. You heard General Manager Gruber's comments about the fire hydrants. Do you have any update on that from your perspective?
Yes, we are right on task. We're probably about 15% completion of the total hydrants in town. We have a crew dedicated to this project, so they come in and work extra hours to get that done. They have it all outlined, and we, like he mentioned, we should be done by the 1-year timeline, right on schedule.
Any other questions? Thank you, Captain, for your report today.
Thank you.
Okay, manager's report is, sorry, I do have a public comment on the fire department report from Tina Dickinson. Sorry, Tina.
Just want to follow up on the fire of the 18th. I followed up myself because I was very concerned with the fact that Director Berenger at the last meeting said to Chief Hollingsworth, or commented that there had been 11 drops from the surface impoundment, the evaporation pond that contains brine waste from the facility in San Simeon. That was corrected by Chief Hollingsworth, and he said there were 5 buckets taken from the evaporation pond and 6 from the ocean. Last year, there was a fire not far from the high school, as I'm sure we all recall. The water that was used to put that fire out was from the Warren Reservoir that Clyde Warren had put up on his property. I was very concerned that that reservoir was not used, and Mr. Warren himself was wondering why it wasn't used, and he took a photo of a chopper coming out of the evaporation pond, and he's thinking, why aren't they using the reservoir this year? I followed up with Chief Scott Jalbert in San Luis and with Alan Peters, because there needs to be some coordination, that we are not using the evaporation pond. That would be the last resort, and it is heavily contaminated. As we know from reading reports to the regional board, it should be the last absolute possible resource that's being used. There's no excuse for them not using the Warren Reservoir, and when it comes down to it, the ocean water is far safer than what we have in that toxic pond. So I'm hoping that all of these departments coordinate, because that should never have happened. Thank you.
Director Berenger?
Yes. The water in the evaporation pond is less toxic than the background water in the ocean. Every constituent in the evaporation pond is less, and the surface water specifically is far less. Just a point.
Read the report.
Read the report compared to seawater.
From the Regional Water Quality Control Board.
Thank you. General Manager Gruber.
Thank you, Madam President and board members. And Director Thompson, this PowerPoint presentation is for you. So, and this is just very special. So if you'd go ahead and start that, and just real quick, and then I'll go through my general manager's report quickly. Just want to bring you up to date on the good things the district continues to do and the advancements that we're making. It's mostly focused on the park today, so we're going to, if you've had a chance to walk over there to the East Ranch and see the efforts that are underway. If we get the first slide, please. Just give me a second. Okay. So as you know, the board approved the Phase 1 park update for the Fiscalini Ranch, and to include parking, dog park, and passive field. So this is a Fiscalini Phase Ranch, Phase 1 park. Material for the parking lot is being dropped off. Truckloads at the material are coming in and being spread out. Work forms for the 2 additional handicap spaces are being worked on this week, which is this week. So next slide, please. This is some more work regarding the park itself. As you can see, there's a lot of grading and drainage work going on, a lot of base material being brought in, and so far they're ahead of schedule. Next slide. Pretty much some more of the same, to kind of give you a view of everything that's occurring out there. Next slide. Some more. That's the parking lot area right there. You can see. We are close to our inspection on the demo of the abandoned house. We're referring to the Phillips house. It's been there for a while. That was part of the original contract to get this removed. we were under the assumption that the house was hooked up to a sewer system. However, after digging up, we discovered that the house was on a septic system. Per county inspector, it does not require that we remove the old septic tank, just fill it in with sand, and that should be finished later on this week or early next week. So that's a good thing. This is some more work that's going on, a different department, so we transition now from, well, the same department really, but just a different location. This is right on the other side of Highway 1 right there, and that's the Facilities and Resource Department has started working on the eucalyptus project on the ranch, and the prison crew started the work this week. I was out there yesterday, and this is the project that FFRP is working on, and it's clearing away approximately 3 acres of some of the eucalyptus. And there's a biologist on scene yesterday, and the work's going really good. They were hoping to finish up yesterday, but they were called out on a fire, and they also ran into a grounds hornet's nest, and so that kind of put the kibosh on things for the day. So Alberto only got stung once, and some of the prisoners got stung on the face and things like that. So yeah, it wasn't so. Next slide, please. This is some more of the same work. Next slide. Some more of the same work. Next slide. And this is, continued update on the wastewater treatment plant. This is before the picture of the handrails. You can see on the left right there, it was really rusted out. And this is after the picture of the handrails that are fabricated in the house, in-house by John and staff and installed by a welding company here in town. And so what they're doing now is, this is our digesters. Those digesters are working properly. It's the first time the digesters have worked properly in years. We're using them how they're supposed to be used. But the guardrails are the grates were in really bad shape, and the handrails were in really bad shape. So they're still working on it. I was down there the other day, and they're still working on all the handrails, and they're still working on all the grading that goes across the digester. So this was really a safety concern. So it's all been resolved, or all being resolved. So I think this is one more. As Adam and Ben are seeding the banks for restoration. This is where that big water break occurred, if you remember, right behind the Bluebird Hotel. And so they're restoring that back to full vegetation. So during the rainy season, we don't experience any erosion or anything like that. So real quick on my general manager's report. We'll be discussing the following items: the sustainable water facility. We won't be operating that system this year. With the rains that we had, we feel like that we're in a pretty good situation with the WBE well and the Santa Rosa Creek and the San Simeon Creeks. In addition to the gradient out at the wastewater ponds out there. Impoundment Basin and associated closure plans submitted to the Regional Water Quality Control Board on August 14th. There was some public comment earlier regarding the response from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And just as a point of clarification, the letter that we received from the Regional Water Quality Control Board on the 21st of August states that the memo provides no technical justification for choosing the evaporation, only indicating required implementation of options 1 through 4. I've been in contact with the Regional Water Quality Control Board yesterday. We have a conference call with CDM Smith, and we're working diligently on responding to this. And we still feel that the evaporation is the best option for quite a few reasons, but mostly for the financial benefit. And then we'll be responding to them regarding some more technical responses relating to the evaporation alternative. And then a letter went out from me today, August 24th. So this is available to the public, the August 21st letter. And then my letter that I sent to the Regional Water Quality Control Board indicating that we will be in correspondence with them every 2 weeks and letting them know the progress that we're making. And this letter specifically outlines the efforts that we've been making on conditions 1 through 4 within the cease and desist order. So if anybody would like a copy of this, as I indicated to the Regional Water Quality Control Board yesterday, that Upon the original submittal of the closure plan, we anticipated there would be some back and forth dialogue, and that's what's occurring. And so we are, staff and we're absolutely committed to making sure that we get them a closure plan that is comprehensive and that also meets all the needs of the cease and desist order. I have in here, Bob is going to briefly touch on unaccounted for water, but as you can see, Bob is not here. Bob is working diligently on the very issues that I just discussed regarding the impoundment basin. So we don't calculate unaccounted for water this way. It's a more detailed analysis, but I just wanted to provide you, the public, some quick information regarding production versus influent flows to the wastewater treatment plant. And that's a quick way to do it. You should be relatively close to each other on those two. Again, the amount of water coming into the wastewater treatment plant and the water being pumped out of the ground on a daily basis. So in July, as I looked at and analyzed all the figures that we have, we pumped 18,555,000 gallons, and we received 15,238,000 into the wastewater treatment plant, a variance of 17.8%. Again, that's not how we calculate unaccounted for water, but to give you an idea that we're getting a handle on this, and after the repairs were made, we see it going down. Through the 21st of August, the same calculations, influent flow versus the amount of water pumped out of the ground. Again, it's a quick, easy way for us to determine where we are with those two things. Through the 21st of August, we were at 10.8%, and I have this information is readily available. Again, it's comparing influent flows to the wastewater treatment plant and production. I touched on the community's water supply situation. We're doing really well on that. No pun intended. I have received a professional or a proposal from William Bellis regarding the Stewart Street tank to project manage the repairs to the Stewart Street tank. I'm going to be meeting with the Infrastructure Committee next week, and his bid came in at a good price, and then we're thinking that the repairs to the tank itself, replacing those panels on top, will run about $25,000, so it'll be well within the budgeted amount of $64,000 as part of the budget for 17-18. So we want to get those repairs made. We want to get those roof panels replaced. I'll be project managing that with William, and we'll get that done in hopefully the next couple months. So the Infrastructure Committee will be working, and we'll be talking about that next week. We've talked about the park Phase 1, the progress that's being made there. The Pros Commission has been really amazing. They're always amazing, but really amazing since the park has started. We're meeting out there every week as opposed to once a month. And the representatives from the board are there, Director Berenger and Director Thompson. And we meet with the contractor every week. And we talk about the progress of the park that's being made. Is there any challenges? Are we on schedule? And so the Pros Commission and two of the board members are very actively involved in that process. Replacing the financial software, as you know, last month we formed an IT committee, and then next week the IT committee will be meeting with staff because we want to make sure we're on the same page. We want to make sure that the board is pleased with the direction that we're going, especially with some of the past experiences relating to SCADA systems. I think Vice President Sanders brought up a very good point last month regarding that. So we're going to be working with the two board members, which is Director Berenger and President Rice, on an IT solutions to the CCSD. The Coastal Commission, California Coastal Commission, will be here September 13th, 14th, and 15th. Tentatively, we have the reception scheduled up for the Hearst Castle area. As a backup plan, we have it scheduled for San Simeon, the reception that the Coastal Commission usually has. We're in the coordination effort part of it. We're not sponsoring it by any stretch of the means, and we're trying to coordinate a tour of the sustainable water facility if there are any Coastal commissioners interested in touring that facility. Patrick, I got in here. Patrick will be talking briefly about the about the cash balance. That's available in the financial manager statements if there's any questions about where the district is financially and what our cash projections are. Again, Patrick is back at the shop working on a bunch of other issues. We have received a preliminary proposal. It is a draft preliminary proposal from Bartle Wells on the rate study and water and wastewater CIP connection fees and long-term financial plan. Again, next week's going to be a busy week. Next week, we're meeting with the Finance Committee, which is comprised of President Rice and Vice President Sanders, and we're going to be reviewing that proposal. Next steps regarding the old library building. The County Board of Supervisors, that's an upcoming agenda item, and we'll be discussing that also with the Finance Committee. There was a preliminary architectural report done that listed different options regarding the cost associated with rehabilitating that building and bringing it up to specifications where we could move in. There was 4 options identified in that plan, and so we'll be talking with those, discussing those options with the Finance Committee and getting some direction with regard to where we want to go with that. Monique and I reviewed the preliminary plans that were done by the architect, and yesterday we spent about an hour, and we're very pleased with the way it's set up right now. I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work really well for staff. To include a conference room, which is great because then the board won't have to meet in my office all the time when they want to have closed session or a meeting. So I like the conference room aspect of it. We're really close to launching a GIS system. I don't know if you guys know Seth Sutherland. He's worked really hard with the district. This is not an expensive undertaking. It's more of a logistical thing right now, making sure that our server supports the GIS system and making sure that we can put it on our existing computers. So district engineer and myself will be working with Monique and working with the different departments. And we feel that this is a high priority because of the age of the system, the things that we've recently experienced as far as leaks and things like that, and we want to be able to have that available on laptops for the employees in the field through remote access so they can look at where valves are, where manholes are, where distribution system, collection system is, so they can respond expediently versus running back somewhere and getting maps. So we're moving forward with that. The status on the OES application filed by the district, we have submitted 2 completed applications regarding the last year's storm events. Several of the items that we had listed on there were not eligible, and so we've decided just to not move forward with those. I don't have a list of those right now. I'll make sure that the board and the community gets those. But that process is moving forward. But that in itself, that process has required a full-time staff member just to make sure that we're dotting all the I's and crossing the T's. So I know there's been a lot of talk. My last item is the laundromat. We entered into an agreement with them several years ago. That agreement will expire December of 2017. And where we are with this is I've talked to the owner several different times, and the machines that have been damaged have because people have used the machines improperly. They've loaded them down in excess of what the machines are spec'd out to do. And so it's been kind of a frustrating situation for everybody, but she has ordered some new machines, or she's in the process of ordering those new machines, and I've asked for the specifications of those new machines to make sure that they're consistent with the original agreement. My recommendation to the board is once the December timeline for the existing agreement passes, that we do not renew it. I did provide the Cambrian with some statistical information regarding some comparisons about their usage prior to the machines being installed and the usage that's going on now. I can't give them detailed building information. I'm not allowed to do that. So some new machines are coming there as long as they're consistent with what the water savings was originally agreed upon. And that's it. I think that's everything. I've touched on quite a bit of things, but again, I think the main emphasis right now for staff is working diligently on the impoundment basin, the sustainable water facility, the closure plan, the cease and desist order, making sure that we're in communication with the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and making sure that we address and resolve all the matters that were addressed in there, our correspondence back to the CCSD dated August 21st, 2017. So if there's any questions I can answer for the board, there's a lot of good things going on, and we just continue to move forward.
Director Berenger?
Yes. I was glad to hear that you're moving forward with Bartles and Wells. There's, we continue to use general funds to help support water and wastewater, and what we need to do is make sure that those two funds are self-funding. One thing this is the first I've heard about alternate ideas on the library, but might I suggest that the Budget Committee take a hard look at letting the community see what the options are. The vision that I think would be good for this community is if the old library is a place that's a welcoming place where there's a very dedicated position where a citizen can come in, and rather than filling out a public information request, they have someone that they can talk to, and that person, maybe technology needs to come up to speed, but we're starting to putting our forms in electronic form to be able to just do a quick query, pull something up, give somebody the answer that they're looking for. And that's the vision of having, that's my vision of having a publicly accessible facility. And additionally, I talked to another director. There are some members of the community that want to help have the design that's acceptable for possibly their use, and using some of the funds in order to make it better, a better facility. The Friends of the Library is one organization that was looking for possible potential coordination. The Lions Club, without if they don't have the old schoolhouse, doesn't have an office, and maybe we can provide some community sources for that. So once the Board of Supervisors approves the purchase and we have that, I think it would be good to take 3 weeks or so to look at some of these options rather than having it done just in-house. I think there's a lot of community involvement and input that should be considered on that. After 10 years of having the new facility, we'll at least have some equity, whereas 10 more years of rent, we will not have any equity built. So that's just a comment on your report. Yeah. Thanks.
Madam President, if just as a point of clarification, and thank you, Director Berenger, the options that I referred to are construction options. So ultimately, there's the cost associated with those. Do we want to do everything up front, which is including all the ADA options, or do we want to be able to phase those in? So I didn't want you to think that staff was going in different directions. These are really construction options, and it comes down to what we would like to do as far as we move forward. I think some of the points that, not some of them, all the points that Director Berenger brings up are good points, because this is a community facility. This does not belong to the CCSD. It belongs to the community. When it's finished and when it's in operations and when it's being paid for and paid down, it's a community asset. So I just think those are good ideas that Director Berenger brought up.
If I might just follow up, Director Berenger, did you have a specific thought about how do you envision involving the community at all?
I don't.
Okay.
I have.
I agree. I think that would be nice, but I didn't know if you had something in mind.
I have ideas, and some people have come to me with their ideas. For instance, the Lions Club said, hey, maybe we could, they meet once a month. Maybe they could have some access to the facility. And we have an opportunity to negotiate with the Lions Club to get more parking. There's that possibility. There's possibilities of the property we own across the street. Maybe something can be done then. A lot of people, unless you're not in touch with rumors, obviously the Historical Society wants to move the old schoolhouse to their property. That might include the pocket park. We discussed that at the meeting last time. And so there's actually a source of funds. We can sell some of that property to people. And there's some funds from organizations that can help make it more of a community facility and help fund some of it. So, and
Are you thinking like maybe a workshop?
I'm
or-
thinking a
or
workshop. I
something?
think maybe
I'm just trying to get
have
a
a special
handle on-
meeting here,
Mhm.
maybe not have it a board meeting, but have people that are interested parties come together, take a look at the facility, take a look at all of the pieces of the puzzle, and maybe we can get great ideas from the community. That's my thought. And right now, where we are isn't conducive to that. We have a fresh start, and to help serve the community when they walk in and they come into a friendly CCSD is a vision that I'd love to see. So,
And Madam President,
you.
just really quickly, the way the plans are currently drawn up and shown, and staff supports this, is that we've designated an office, a room, if you will, to have a viewing station for public documents for the community. I think that's important, instead of standing at the counter, and so the community will have access to the ability to look through documents, as opposed to, staff will still do that for them as part of public records requests, but it'll be an inviting environment in which they can come in at their leisure, and we'll have some viewing stations where they can go into our archives and look for documents that might be helpful in answering some of the questions that they have. So,
Well, I don't think we're in a huge hurry because I think it's the 19th that the Board of Supervisors does their part of the agreement for the sale. So, yeah, the 19th of September. So maybe at some point here, unless there's major objections from other board members, maybe we can give some direction to staff to figure out, put a workshop or something together going forward, so we can do this and stay on target with our timelines that we're trying to meet. I'm not seeing any objections, so thank you very much. Director Farmer?
Thank you, President Rice. There's a couple of items I'd like to address with regard to the manager's report, considering especially since we are a water and sewer services district primarily. With regard to the Stewart Street tank, I just want to mention just a few minutes ago, we saw photos of the rusted handrails. At the base of the handrails, the rusting was taking place over at the wastewater facility. Back in early April, Director Berenger and myself, along with General Manager Gruber and Jason Buell, the head of the water department, we took a tour of lift stations. We also went over to the Stewart Street tank, and we were able to see the rusting that was taking place and the bolts at the base of the tank. There's obvious cause for concern. A couple of days ago, I attended a meeting that was called for by the General Manager Gruber to meet with Karen Dean and her husband Alan, and they had a number of concerns that they wanted to address to the General Manager. One of the things they did was show us photos of those bolts that I told you about at the Stewart Street tank that look far worse than they did when we took the tour originally back at the beginning of April. The reason I'm bringing this up is because at that tour that we took in April, and we were discussing the tank, especially the roof, which of course we didn't climb up the 30 feet to look at the roof, but we took a look at the bolts and everything. And at that point, the discussion was, we're going to replace the tank, and the only issue was, were we going to replace it with a bolted tank or a welded tank? one of them being a little more expensive, but also lasting longer. And this is the email that I got from the general manager on April the 12th. I'm just going to read a portion of it. We are budgeting $330,000 as part of the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. I have also requested that William Bellis prepare a proposal to design and project manage the Stewart Street tank replacement similar to the Fiscalini tank. Then here's an email from May 1st to Mr. Bellis. Due to budget restraints, will we be making repairs, hopefully of the Stewart Street tank, instead of replacing the entire tank this year? I am moving forward with a low-interest loan from the state and/or grant and will need your assistance. Mr. Bellis says, this is in an email from middle of June, I've budgeted the amount that indicates the repair to the roof panels and the side piece. I believe we're looking at $60,000. And then there's one a little bit further down from Mr. Bellis. I just wanted to confirm that you desire the more simple scope of replacing only the severe damaged roof panels. Total cost will be about $30,000. And then he says, we are estimating full replacement of the tank will be necessary in 3 to 5 years. And Mr. Bellis has also mentioned in another email, an entire new bolted tank is certainly a good option. Replacing the lower panel in the existing tank has never been a favorite of mine. So the expert, and actually, so I'm saying here that the original proposal, the original thought not that long ago was replacing the entire tank. And then it went down to, well, we can't afford to replace the entire tank. We'll just do $60,000. And now it's down to $30,000. And I'm just seriously concerned about, we're talking about a water tank. And, okay, these minor repairs, maybe they'll work for right now. But 3 to 5 years, we are going to need a new tank. And apparently, in April, middle of April, we had the money. I just read you the email. And then less than 3 weeks later, we didn't have the money. I'm wondering, number one, why we don't have the money that we thought we had before. I would also, before I get an answer on that, I just want to point out something in the current budget for the expenditures for July 2017. And this is on page 48 of the budget, of the agenda packet, 10 of 14 of the budget. TPB Investments Incorporated, we made 2 payments to them on the 26th of July. This is for the bank loan for the emergency water facility, $329,712.34, 64 cents. The amount that it would take to have replaced the Stewart Street tank. So I just want the members of the community to know how your money is and isn't being spent. And like I say, we are Water and Sewer Services District. And having adequate water storage is a serious issue. And personally, I don't feel as if it's being dealt with correctly. Thank you very much.
Madam President.
I would also ask one more thing. Well, go ahead and respond to that, and then I want to, I'll bring up one more item, please.
I'd like to thank Director Farmer so I wrote down most of it, but if you recall the Prop 218 process and the work that was done by Alex Handler derived a rate structure that specifically allocated money for the sustainable water facility and for the water department and for the wastewater department. Those rates were passed overwhelmingly by the community, so the money that you're saying could be used for the Stewart Street tank is not a viable option from the sustainable water facility because the way the 218 process was crafted, it was clear when the ratepayers were voting on that was the case. So those funds cannot be intermingled. In reference to your April email that I sent out, that money was, we were not going to bring forth a balanced budget. And we were going to continue to use money out of the general fund. And so the assumption was made in the preliminary stages of the budget for 2017, 2018, that would be okay with the board. Subsequent to that, the budget committee had directed the staff to create a zero-based budget so that $360-something thousand that you're referring to, along with many of the wastewater projects, essentially went away, knowing that another rate study is coming and that and some of those concerns will be addressed at that time. You referenced when we were up at the tank. It's also important to know that Bob Greshams, the engineer, was there, and also Chief Hollingsworth, in addition to the folks that you mentioned, Jim, Director Berenger, yourself, and me. And with regards to the pictures that Karen took, that's algae. If you look at it, it looks like it's worse off, and that can be pressure washed, and that can be painted, and that can be caulked. And I think the responsible thing to do, and we've talked about this, and we have money within the budget, and this is what we have indicated to the state that we'll do, is to repair those roof panels. With regards to the side panel, if you, and I'm sure you have it in an email, is it's Williams Bellis's recommendation that we don't get into that because that could be problematic and create more work. So what we will have is a reservoir that's repaired that'll meet the requirements of the state, and we'll do it for the available money that we have within the 2017-2018 budget. I can talk more about the grant and low interest loan, but we've talked about that in great detail at many other board meetings, and Director Farmer and I have had a lot of different talks on that. So I hope I covered all the questions. I think it's a solution to a problem that we have that will enable us to get another 3 to 5 years out of that system. And then we can work closely with the board and with staff and Alex Handler from Bartle Wells, and we can address the infrastructure deficiencies, and we can plot a course on how to resolve those. In parallel, you referenced the meeting with Karen Dean and her husband and you. I thought it was a really good meeting, but I explained in detail what's required of the state, specifically relating to a low interest loan. We don't have the debt to earning ratio, if you would, just like if you were to go buy a house or a car, they want to see what your revenue is versus your expenditures. So that has to be resolved, which I'm confident we will. And then from a grant perspective, essentially, as I explained at the meeting in pretty much good detail to everybody, is that has to be a shovel-ready process. There's components to a grant process, and those components are regulatory, environmental, financial, and engineering. And if all those components are not finished in a complete packet when you submit your grant application, it's deemed incomplete. Similar to what we're experiencing right now at the wastewater plant, and we'll get there. But if I wanted to apply for a grant for the Stewart Street tank or any other tank, those 3 or 4 components that I just mentioned would have to be completed for us to seriously be considered as a contender. Ultimately, I'd like to be able to get there for when we do apply for grants. I want to, as we move forward with grants, I want to be able to submit completed packets so we're not wasting anybody's time, including the folks up at the State Water Resources Control Board. So I know you're frustrated, Director Farmer, with some of the infrastructure issues. I share your frustration.
Director Behringer, and then Director Farmer.
Yes, I agree. Director Farmer, I support your history of that. And yes, we were, at the time, thinking about deficit spending again to support that tank. But as you and I both know, there's far bigger, there's far more infrastructure that we need to address. And there's two different colors of money. There's that money that comes to the district for administrative and fire, and that comes from our taxpayers. And our ratepayers should be paying a rate that supports water and wastewater, including the CIP, the Capital Improvements Project. And I share your frustration. And you're looking over something that happened over a 4-month period when for 6 years we haven't been able to get that rag picker in there, and that bothers me. And that's not, and now all of a sudden it's changed from $85,000 in one day to $300,000. So there are infrastructure, capital improvement project that must be addressed by the ratepayers because that color of money must be water and wastewater money. And that's frustrating maybe, but putting a couple extra firefighters on it is coming from our taxpayers, not our ratepayers, and we need to solve those problems. So to look at to get our to defer, to use the cash, the money we have for deferring this off a couple of years. Mr. Bartles and Wells can put that replacement as part of the project over the next 5 years. Earlier, I gave you some pieces of paper that President Rice gave me at last meeting. And it had this was in 2002, some of these capital improvement projects were there. This was before I even joined the board. So, yeah, I agree with your frustration, but 4 months or moving something out 3 years, and I'm the last guy that wants to kick the can down the road, I'll tell you that's for sure. That's why I'm disappointed we don't have today a contract from Bartles and Wells. We need to act on this the next month. I don't care if it's Christmas. We should be doing what we can to make sure that we can then, maybe deficit spend, but at least with the idea of getting paid back out of the general fund, getting paid back rather than deferring it down the road. So again, I share your frustration.
Director Thompson, is this on the same topic?
Yes.
Okay. And then Director Farmer.
Two points. Firstly, I had a very nice chat with Mr. Provost, the editor of our paper this week, and amongst other discussions, I indicated to him that in his viewpoint of last week, he made the comment that there's only two factors to consider when funding a project. One is, can we afford it? And two, is it worth it? And I suggested to Mr. Provost that in 2012, there was quite another factor, and that was, can we afford not to do it? And that was when we were looking at losing our aquifers to seawater intrusion, when the County Office of Emergency Services was discussing how they would get water to Cambria when our taps run dry. They were discussing shipping it up here from the desal plant at Diablo Canyon. And then another thing is that, you just look up and down the state and all the communities that were having issues with, and were running out of water and using bottled water to take showers, like in East Porterville. So the issue in 2012 was not, can we afford it? It was can we afford not to do it? And doing nothing was not an option at that time. And I think you only have to look as far as the election of 2014, where the two incumbents who supported the emergency water system were elected in a landslide of 60% to 40%. And the people of this community stood up and said, yes, we need that project. My second point is the water rate issue. In my discussion with Mr. Provost, I indicated to him that I had 6 utility bills last month. PG&E was $132. AT&T for phone and internet was $109. My cell phone bill was $85. My Southern California gas bill was $87. My Dish internet, or my Dish television service was $105, and my CCSD water bill was $60 for 1 month. And I think one of the issues that people don't necessarily follow is that we bill every other month. And I would certainly hope that at some point in time in the future, we can look at monthly billing so people will get a real indication of what the water costs are for this community. 6 utility bills, the cheapest was water. And in fact, I even paid $47 for the Tribune, which was 8 pages a day or whatever. So it really is a bargain, and I think that certainly the rate study should prove that.
Is this on the same topic? I don't want to.
Same topic.
Okay, thank you.
I just wonder why we're discussing this now. We discussed this thoroughly when we had the budget hearings.
Excuse me for interrupting, why I'm bringing up the Stewart Street tank?
Well, you're questioning the staff and you're impugning the staff, and we had a thorough discussion of this issue when we had the budget hearings.
Well, let me just say this, that it's in the manager's report, and I voted against the budget when it came up, and I feel it's an issue that still needs to be in front of the eyeballs and the ears of the community.
Well, I understand, but I think kicking a dead horse is not very productive.
Well, I think kicking the can down the road is totally unproductive.
All
right, gentlemen.
We had the discussion.
I'm just saying.
We made
Gentlemen,
we made the
please.
policy, and I think we should simply move forward.
No, well, let me put, as I said, I did not vote for the policy of balancing the budget by kicking down the road the needs of the water department for a new water tank and the needs of the wastewater department. With regard to the response that the general manager made, he said, funds cannot be intermingled. I wasn't talking about intermingling the funds. I was just pointing out the fact that half a year of payment for the emergency water facility that isn't running this year would equal the amount of money it would take to purchase the tank. The other issue that I wanted to bring up is, oh, by the way, you also mentioned that with regard to the I think it was the Stewart Street tank, General Manager Gruber, that you didn't want to waste the time of the Regional Water Quality Control Board. I'm sure they're very happy to hear that.
No, what I was referring to is the State Water Resources Control Board in Sacramento, who I meet with. I've met with several times, and they encouraged that if we could have a board member or a president come up. Their grant people explain the process to us, and they want the board to understand the process. And so that's what I meant. The Regional Water Quality Control Board staff is more works directly with us on the sustainable water facility. The folks up in Sacramento, the State Water Resources Control Board, they're the ones that handle the grants. And so I just want to be, compassionate and sympathetic of them to make sure that, based on the instructions and direction they gave us regarding future grant opportunities, that we adhere to the guidelines and making sure that we have all our I's dotted and T's crossed when we apply for a future grant. So that was just a point of clarification on that.
And I would like to be clear that as a member of the Budget Committee, when we requested that we have a balanced budget and reduce our spending into the red in the budget year, it was the decision, that decision was made to go forward, and the general manager was tasked with asking his department heads, where can we cut, where can't we cut, and made some decisions that maybe could have made it in a different way to have more money for the Stewart Street Tank project to be done, because we all know quite well by this time that there's a lot of infrastructure maintenance and replacement that needs to happen and that has been deferred for so very long. It was not an easy decision to make, but going into the red even further didn't seem to be the better choice at the time. That when the budget comes up for next year, we're going to have to be wrestling with the same monster. So I have a couple questions, and then I have some public comment.
Could I just follow up, please?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Director Farmer.
Just going to take a moment. My apologies. With regard to the emergency water facility and the surface water impoundment basin closure plan and the requirements, and it's noted here that the basin closure plan is being co-authored with CDM Smith, since they're the people that designed and built the plant, and it's turned out to not be adequate. I'd like to know how much will CDM Smith be contributing to the costs of closing down the impoundment basin, or is it all going to go on the shoulders of the ratepayers of this community?
I think that would be an appropriate conversation to have in a different environment.
No problem.
Yeah, this,
No problem.
Madam President, this is not bordering on it. It's grandstanding. That's all it is.
So what do you
We have a
mean?
closed session
Gentlemen.
today that is going to discuss the very item you're bringing up right now.
It's in the report.
And we have
of the general
we have
manager.
a
He
closed
just-
session scheduled for today to discuss that very item. And you know that.
No, I wasn't aware of the fact that we're going to be discussing this item, and it's sitting here right in the manager's report.
My first comment is kind of a sense of feedback on the. You always list the responses to. You always list who had requested public records and what they had requested. It might be more helpful for the board if we actually saw the responses that were provided, since you're providing that to the community. Instead of just having the question here, it would be good if often I look at these requests and I say, wow, I'd like to know the answer to that, but I don't have access. I don't just kind of get that as a matter of course. It seems like if we're putting the records together anyway, maybe that would be a better way to provide it.
We don't have a
know.
problem with that. Some of the information that's being requested your board packet would be like this, but maybe what I'm hearing you say, if I'm hearing you say correctly, is not necessarily the documents that are being requested, but how we responded to those documents being requested. Absolutely. And if it's something that the board wants to discontinue as far as putting this in my general manager report, we're okay with that too.
I find it helpful to know what questions people are
Absolutely.
asking. I would find it even more helpful if I knew what the answers were.
Yes, that's not a problem at all. I mean, it just requires another sentence or two that on this date we responded with this information. In some instances, the information that's being requested is not available because it's,
Well,
and we
that's a
can we
different-
can state that too.
right.
I think it's a very good point.
Director Berenger?
Madam President, let me jump on that one too. It would be good if it even, because a lot of times they don't have the information or it takes time, on a monthly basis for us to see that this is going to take 18 days, 14 days, 3 days, whatever. Even if the answer hasn't been provided, then the general public knows, at least it didn't go into a
Right, I
deep
can't
hole.
tell, I can't tell how
Right.
it's gone.
Right, so
from
I
this
agree with
report.
your approach, that's all.
Thank you. I had a call from a constituent about the dust being raised in the grading of the park. I don't know if any more of that kind of work is going to be going on, and I don't know if you've heard from, I forwarded the information that they should contact you about that issue, but I don't know if you have a dust control a dust control program for that part of the construction, or?
Yes, Madam President, they're required, and it is a very sensitive issue with the AQMD, Air Quality
Right.
Management District, and part of the agreement, the contract, and part of the process with the county approving that was a pretty aggressive dust control program. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. When we meet with them Tuesday, and I'll have Carlos reach out to them today. I won't wait till Tuesday because
Okay,
today's
thank
Thursday.
you.
I'll make sure that they're adhering and abiding by that dust control program, because it is relatively close to Highway 1, and we have some of our neighbors right up the road, and we want to make sure that as this project moves forward, that we're doing everything we can to be aware, aware of some of those issues like noise. I've got a call regarding that.
Okay.
And dust control and things like that. Those are good points. Anytime you get those, just pass them on to me, and we'll take
That's
care
what
of
I
it.
usually do. I just wanted to check in. On page 6, it talks about the CCSD lots and the 85 parcels were abated this year. Is that 85 of CCSD parcels? Or is that 85 parcels that were abated? I'm looking on page 6 in the, it's under the parks and facilities, I believe, and report. It says 85 parcels were abated this year. Is that 85 of our parcels that CCSD owns? Or is that 85 parcels that hadn't been cleared that needed to be cleared? It's just unclear. Yes, page 6, right in the middle, it says CCSD lots number 4. I just want to make sure that we abated all the lots that we own, or if this is the number of people. Okay. And is that all of them, so that we didn't leave any unabated? I'm trying to guess, is that, okay. And then on the next page, I just need some basic CCSD 101, I guess, because I don't know what it means when you say 14 assignments under the permit counter. I don't know what an assignment is. Can you clarify for me?
Yeah, the assignment is when somebody wants to sell their waitlist position, and it's attached to a property, and they sell the property along with the waitlist position. So we call it an assignment. They fill out the documents, and we process them.
So it basically transfers that waitlist position to the new owner of the property that the waitlist position is associated with, is that right? Okay,
Yeah, so an assignment is a sale, and a transfer is relocation.
got it. Thank you, that's helpful. On page 11, it says there was 2 water meter service line upgrades for fire flow installed. I'm looking at page 11. This is under the water manager's report, and you may not be able to answer this right now, but my question is a bigger question relating to fire flow and these water meter service line upgrades. Is this like residential, and this is something that we're going to have to be doing, and do we need to be calculating in additional fire flow for like fire protection systems?
Let me check with Jason on this. I think when they come across a meter that is their line, from our side out needs to be repaired to the distribution system. I think historically, if memory serves me correctly, there were 5/8-inch services off the distribution. And now if we're going in there and changing them and tapping into the main line, we increase them to 1 inch for fire flow. So I think it's a good question, but we take that 5/8 inch now, and we increase the size diameter of the line.
Okay. Director Berenger?
And I understand that's really anticipating if somebody is going to put in sprinkler systems or is required to do
Right,
so.
and I just wanted to make sure that if that's the case, if they have to put in sprinkler systems and then we have to upgrade their service line, that we calculate that into the water use and into whatever kind of things that need to be done when we're dealing with these things.
As far as water use, it only increase water use if you had a fire. I mean, just installing
But a
sprinklers,
1-inch
the idea
line,
is
you
not
get
to
more
use-
water, right?
You make a bigger line so that if you were to install fire sprinklers.
That you could
and
have enough flow.
You'd have
Thank
enough
you.
flow, and if you don't have a fire, it doesn't change the flow. There you go.
Got it. Not a water engineer. That's why I was asking, just a little one-on-one. I have a few requests to speak on this item, starting with Elizabeth Bettenhausen, followed by Tina Dickinson.
Thank you, Madam President. I do want to talk about my outstandingness on page 1 of the General Manager's report. I think I have the highest totality, although I haven't counted for the past 17, take away 15 years. But I want to refer to each one of these specifically, because the first one has to do precisely with the library. I wanted to know, last time you'll probably recall, what is the principal of the loan, what is the interest of all those details. And you did not have the documents in the agenda packet. Perhaps you had them in your closed sessions, but I didn't have them, and so I got them. And I want you to know that until I see some more documents, there is no specific loan document. And the Board of Supervisors perhaps will make one up, I do not know. But I will certainly drop a note to Supervisor Gibson and ask him if he's got it and would like to share it. So that was the first one. I had all those documents that are very enlightening, including about all your options. You might want to know about them. They're all in those documents. Number 2, I certainly just asked a simple question about the park. I asked Bob Gressens, is it the one that's posted on the website or not, this description of Phase 1? And he turned it into a huge staff issue and a PRR. It wasn't my, I just wanted to know, yes or no. But that didn't work either. It turned into a PRR. But the last one, and I can document that, excuse me, sir, I can document that with emails if you would like to read yours again. I would like to say something about number 3. Friends, I don't like to just, bitch about the CCSD. That's not my cup of tea. I make suggestions. I show you how to improve your website. I've done that step by step by step by step, and what do I get? Ignored. I don't need the CCSD to pay attention to me. I need the CCSD to develop a website that makes sense. The Stewart Street tank, according to your website, will be finished in 2012. Well, that's a little outdated. The water reports, I had to ask finally for a PRR because what was there was not what was there. And so I want to assure you that I got the data for the daily July. I got the usage for July by a PRR, as it turned out, because it's not published on the website. And I found out that the unaccounted for water for July was 25.5%. And it didn't go up on the day of the fire, the pumping. It went up, the initial leak, but it didn't go up to 25.5% of unaccounted water. So I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what August is, and maybe they'll post it. You can tell that, yeah, you can tell. Well, I like to be forthright. I don't like to hide my stuff. Oh, I guess I better stop. I don't have any other comments that I can share because time has run out. But you might want to take a look at whether or not you have a standing finance committee or an ad hoc finance committee before you start looking at long-range financial issues for the dear district.
Thank you, Ms. Bettenhausen. Tina Dickinson, followed by Ted Key.
Tina Dickinson, thank you, Director Farmer, for bringing what I think are responsible comments, responsible concerns for this water and sewer district, which I don't see any other member on this board paying attention to, or the general manager or the engineer. We've talked about Stewart Street tanks ad nauseum for as long as I've lived here. And they are rotting away, and it's not algae that's down the side of those. Algae grows in a body of water. It doesn't grow along the sides of where the seams are put together on that tank. Sorry. The August 14th letter that was sent to Mr. Roque from the district regarding the closure of the pond, the district says, Mr. Gruber, when we met at the regional board, we discussed emptying the impoundment basin in the most expedient manner prior to the next rainy season. There were 4 options. Option 1, we believe evaporation is the only economically feasible alternative. Option 2 recommends reverse effluent from the CSD to the water treatment plant. This option would be $1 million, cost prohibitive. Option 3, trucking the pond content to a suitable facility, $1,150,000, to cost prohibitive. Option 4 is to treat pond water with ion exchange and to discharge to water percolation ponds. The cost of this would be $2,830,000. This option would also be cost prohibitive and represents an overwhelming majority of the CCSD's cash balance. In the Cambrian, I saw that Director Sanders said, "At this point, I am not concerned regarding the response from the Water Board. The letter mentions the possibility of fines because it has to. We are looking at an ion exchange filter system that will remove the boron from the brine before it is trucked to a sewer treatment plant." I'd like to know how we got away from the 2.8 million. We can't do that, but we are going to look at the very 2.8 million that we can't afford, but we're going to be looking at it. This was in the Cambrian today. I'm sort of baffled about that. The Water Board, of course, found none of the options acceptable. And in fact, I think they were quite disappointed with what you turned in. Director Behringer, on the library.
Thank you,
said-
Ms. Dickerson.
You know, you've had an hour to talk, and we get what, 3 minutes on all of what you've had to speak? That's it. That's how what you think of this community.
Thank you, Ms. Dickerson.
Yes.
Ted Key, and that's my last request to speak on this item.
Is there a button I have to push? No, okay, thank you. Today, there is discussion on the intent to serve letters, and I have several questions about that process and the WOGU project, that's the Evelyn Street project. First, there seems to be considerable variation in the number of pipeline projects. The CCSD declared a water emergency on November 15th, 2001. At that time, there were 124 outstanding commitment letters remaining, including 14 with active service meters, 20 with connection permits, 25 grandfathered meters, and 65 previously issued intent to serve letters, including the 38 approved commitments of the October 25th, 2001 CCSD board meeting. These outstanding commitments include both residential and commercial development, totaling 202.31 equivalent dwelling units, or approximately 48.55 acre-feet of water. In 2000, the CCSD supplied a total of 798 acre-feet of water. Connections have occurred in excess of the 124 total allowable pipeline projects during the moratorium. 3,887 connections were reported by the CCSD in A3 Slow 05017 Pine Knolls Tank Appeal. Cambria CSD's 2012 Madhouse Conservation Report reported 4,168 connections, which is an increase of 281 connections. From what I can tell, the County Code 350 declaration of Stage 3 is still in effect. My questions are, how many pipeline projects are there? How many projects continued during the Stage 3? What are the time limits? And how does this relate to the proposed 40 intent to serve letters per year for the next 20 years? Where are these 281 new water meters coming from, since these projects are not on any wait list? Where is the new water coming from, since the desal project isn't running and we haven't changed our water availability? How did the CCSD allow WOGU 44 units of water bi-monthly? Please explain how and when WOGU received the working water meter that's been on site for months when the CCSD is only approving it today. How could WOGU build without a water meter verification from the CCSD? How many future projects have these water readings? Are we already under obligation to provide water at these highly inflated levels? Are the water use projections for building expansion still based solely on the almost decade-old 2008 study? Finally, WOGU has had a water meter for quite some time. Why haven't the removed trees been replaced? 134 Monterey and coastal pines should have been planted by now. We need to consider new construction only when the project is consistent with the Coastal Act. In-stream flow studies have been conducted for San Simeon and Santa Rosa creeks to ensure water from the habitat. A habitat conservation plan has been conducted for San Simeon and Santa Rosa creeks. The Cambria Forest Management Plan has been funded and implemented. The Cambria Build-Out Reduction Program has been funded and implemented. I look forward to your answers. A lot of questions, and you can answer them, you can answer to them either today or however you would like, but it's a lot of questions. And may I say one more thing? taking water out of the effluent pond, while the hazardous waste is one thing, the other thing is dropping from a helicopter, taking stuff out of that pond could very conceivably damage the liner, in which case your warranty is null and void. Not a good idea.
Thank you for your comments. I do want to address one of the questions about the increase in connections. I believe the 3887, please correct me if I'm going sideways, but the 3887 connections was residential connections, and the 4168 includes the commercial also. We have about 200 commercial accounts. Monique's nodding, yes. Is that, so that's where, we don't have 281 connections commercial, I don't believe, but that's where the majority of those. Ms. Madrid?
What happened was, a few years back when we started the very first Prop 218 process, we added internal meters to the billing system. They were already being calculated and registered, but on what was kindly referred to as the black book. So they're now being recorded in the utility billing system. So we do have roughly 3,890 residential, then we have about 220 commercial, and the rest are internal meters.
All right, thank you. Director Berenger?
Yeah, just to comment on that, there's a misconception that there was building going on, and we all of a sudden have tons more connections. When I was at the Build-Out Reduction Committee, they had analyzed it very, very specifically, and there has not been any extra connections being made. In fact, I think they found there are actually 4 fewer. So these numbers, you're comparing oranges and apples, and so the community should be rest assured that for the past 10 years, there haven't been a lot of trucks building a lot of homes. It's just not, it hasn't happened.
Vice President Sanders?
Yes, Mr. Key also asked whether the water use projections for a building expansion are based solely on the almost decade-old 2008 study, and the answer is no. We have an urban water management plan. It was updated in 2016, was adopted by the board. It's on the website. It's all there.
And it will be updated again, because it's updated on a 5-year rotation. All right. I'm going to, before we get into the ad hoc committee reports, I want to take just a quick 5-minute break at 2:25. We're coming back at 2:25 and a gavel back. Dean Flores here today, and I wanted to find out if the directors would like to hear from him directly today, in addition to the report that's in the agenda packet. Director Berenger? Does anybody have any?
I read the report and I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
He did come here, and his desire to respond, I'm fine, but otherwise I don't think it's.
Your mic wasn't on, I don't think, for that. Okay.
I would rather get on with it.
Okay, we're going to move on with the day. Ad hoc committee reports and other related board member reports. We'll go in order that they're listed here on the agenda, starting with NCAC.
I attended the NCAC meeting. Some questions from the audience were, what's going on with the old schoolhouse and so on and so forth, was brought up. My comments regarding, similar to what I said earlier today about our effort, or my vision anyway. It's just a personal vision, not as a board member. but to get as much community involvement as we can in the facility and potentially even gain some, if it's an extra cost, that it could be covered by some of those organizations, and I've already said that. And I also attended the Pros Commission meeting, 2 of them, and the progress in the park was already reported by the general manager.
I'm really glad to hear about the oversight that's going on with pros, and thank you for both of you for doing that. I appreciate it. Ooh, excitement. FFRP and Forest Committee, Director Farmer.
Thank you. With regard to the Friends of Fiscalini Ranch Preserve, they mostly discussed internal financial matters. They also talked about the need to survey the boundaries of the ranch, which is like 400 acres. This was last done about 20 years ago, and this is being done in preparation for fence repairs. There's also going to be a new trails map. The map is finished. It's at the printers right now, and it's going to be available to the public in about 1 to 2 weeks. And this includes not just a trails map, but a history of the ranch, scheduled docent walks, and other items. And then finally, as has been alluded to, saplings of the eucalyptus trees are being removed near Huntington Drive above the Santa Rosa Creek Trail. But unfortunately, due to the infestation of hornets, that had to be postponed for a short while. With regard to the Forest Committee, the very attractive invasive weed handbook is going to be coming out soon, finally. The Forest Committee is requesting perhaps donations for this and other projects that they're working on. And if folks would like to do that, I mean, it is our forest. You can go to the CambriaForestCommittee.org. And then finally, the committee is arranging for various speakers to do presentations in the near future regarding our human relationship with the forest and the natural world. That's it.
Thank you. Director Thompson.
Director Farmer, just to update on the Forest Committee's handbook, at the Fire Safe Focus Committee yesterday, it was reported that I guess the Fire Council is not looking with favor at funding the book because apparently the cost per booklet would be like something like $37. And so they're not looking favorably at providing the funding for the publication of that.
I wasn't aware of that, and I'll pass that on to the Schwartzes, okay?
Right. Normally they're at the meeting, but there was no one from the Forest Committee there yesterday, and so Dan reported out that they were unlikely to fund it because of that reason, because of the high cost of the publishing. I think 100 books would have cost something like $3,700.
All right. Thank you.
Any other committee reports? Seeing none, let's move on with consent agenda. I don't have any speaker slips for anything on is there anybody that would like to pull an item from consent? No. I just have one small question on the expenditure report, but it won't require being pulled.
Then I'll move that we accept or approve the consent agenda.
Second the motion?
Moved by Director Behringer, seconded by Vice President Sanders. The one question that I have before we take a vote is when I was looking at the PG&E bill enlisted in the expenditure reports, I don't see the wastewater plant, because I usually look and see how much, because that's usually the biggest expense is the wastewater plant for PG&E. So I'll follow up with Patrick later, but I just want to make sure that we're paying our bills and we don't get our power cut off to the wastewater plant.
I might speculate regarding that. I've been working with the Infrastructure Committee and the San Luis Obispo County Energy Watch and Chris in Billing Department and myself, and we've recategorized all of our accounts.
Okay.
Though that recategorization of the accounts will represent about $14,500 annually in savings. So I'm wondering, because of that, if there's a possible delay. It's like when you go from Dish Network to Charter or something. But I'll check on that, because you're absolutely right. Our biggest bill on
On PG&E.
on a monthly basis is the wastewater treatment plant. So I'll make myself a note and
Thank
check
you.
on that for you.
Thank you. I think we can have a roll call vote. It's been moved by Director Berenger, seconded by Vice President Sanders.
Director Berenger?
Aye.
Vice President Sanders?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Thompson?
Aye.
President Rice?
Aye. The vote is 5-0. The consent agenda has been passed. Next up is the regular business for today's meeting. General Manager Gruber.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 6A under regular business is a discussion and consideration of adopting ordinance 02-2017, amending the CCSD Municipal Code, Section 8.04.11, regarding the position transfer and related requirements. And District Council Tim Carmel will be presenting this item to the board.
Madam President, members of the board, this ordinance was introduced at your July 27th meeting. It simplifies the transfer ordinance in our code. That's 804-100. It eliminates the recording of the covenant on the receiver parcel. It eliminates the simultaneous ownership requirement, and it moves the merger requirement to the transfer agreement rather than burdening it in the covenant itself. It's recommended that you adopt by title only and waive further reading, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Vice President Sanders.
Madam President, I move that we adopt by title only and waive further reading of ordinance number 02-2017.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Vice President Sanders, seconded by Director Berenger.
Other than,
You need to read the title.
You have to read.
you have to read the title.
I thought the general manager read the title.
You can incorporate that into the motion.
Okay, as read by the general manager.
Accepted.
I just have a quick question. I don't have any comment slips on this item. If you would like to make a comment, you need to fill out a slip. I'm looking at the resolution on page 77, section 1, number 4. It says there's a sender parcel or alternate designated parcel. Can you kind of just clarify what that means?
You can either use a receiver parcel or an alternative parcel, another parcel.
So you have, so in practicality, so I've got a meter on a particular lot that I want to move that meter to this other lot that has an ocean view, say. So the sender site is the one where there's currently a water meter, and I'm moving it to this other site, which is the receiver. So, and then the one that used to have the active service on it is then essentially retired.
Right.
And then where does this alternate, and the meter gets moved to the new property with the good view. Okay,
Right.
so what's this alternate parcel thing?
If you have another part, you don't necessarily have to use your sender parcel. If you have another piece of property that you own, you can designate that and use that in lieu of your sender parcel. That's basically.
Wait, so I'm still kind of confused. Does that sender, so the sender, the place where the water meter is,
It has to meet the same basic criteria that's actually set forth in the code itself.
Okay.
We have a series of requirements in terms of parcel size.
right, and that's what it's referring to in the subsection B7.
Right.
Right. So I'm just trying to make sure that what's happening is actually what we're intending to happen, which is that there's no additional new service. It's just moving it from one property to another property. So this alternate parcel deal, I'm confused where that extra parcel comes in.
If the sender owns an additional parcel, he can designate that parcel
As the sender parcel?
as the sender parcel.
Instead of?
And retire the development rights and render it
Okay,
undevelopable.
and then it could still be, so the one that isn't the alternate parcel, but the sender parcel could still be built on?
Yes. You only have to retire one.
Okay. And as long as that's what the intention is, that makes me a little uncomfortable, but I understand we're correcting for simplicity in the transfers.
And that's always been a part of
Okay.
this ordinance. We're not adding anything. We're just trying to streamline it based on comments from
Right,
the
and
real
I
estate
understand that. I just wanted to make sure that I was not misunderstanding what it is that's being done with this ordinance change. Are there comments on this item? Oh, okay. We're on 6A.
6B, got a 6C and an 8A and 8B.
Okay.
So let's go like this.
Did you have a comment? Please come to the mic.
Just real quickly, I sent letters.
Sorry, you
That's
have
okay.
more time than that.
I sent letters to you folks regarding an issue on this 8100 business. I hope that, I can get some reply from you guys sooner or later. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If it moved and seconded, are there any other further comments? Mr. McKinnon?
Thank you. Section 4D, paragraph D. This restriction shall not apply to any parcel that is deeded to and accepted by the district or any district purpose, or deeded to and accepted by the county of San Luis Obispo or the state of California for purposes of public recreation or other public facility purposes. Now, I get the impression that these lot transfers would be on residential parcels. Would the CCSD or the county set up recreation in a residential area?
Good point.
Or other public facility purpose?
Not sure that we have an answer to that. Vice President
I mean,
Sanders?
it's certainly possible. There are circumstances where maybe infrastructure has to be put in. There are circumstances where enough parcels are assembled that a small pocket park is created. So the restrictive covenant wouldn't apply in those circumstances.
All right. That being the case, if you make it into a recreational territory, that would require a water meter.
Not necessarily. not
Well, if you're going to
necessarily.
make a park, you got to have public restrooms.
You can have a pocket park without having a public restroom.
Oh, is that so?
Sure.
Well, that's interesting.
The one by the post office,
Okay.
Yeah, we have one.
by the post office.
All right, so it can be done without transferring a water meter from appropriate area into that lot. Okay, thank you.
Director Berenger, did you have? Okay. That item isn't part of what the goal is of doing this ordinance change today, but it is something that I have on my list of policies that we need to probably come back and revisit relating to transfers to the district and what we do with those properties as a bigger picture policy thing. All right, then it's been moved and seconded. It was seconded by Director Berenger, moved by Vice President Sanders. Vice President Sanders?
And then me.
Vice President Sanders?
Aye.
Director Berenger?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Thompson?
Aye.
President Rice?
Aye. All right, let's move on to item 6B. Discussion and consideration of the procedure to fill the vacancy on the board. General Manager Gruber?
Thank you, Madam President. I'll go ahead and read the whole title, and then I'll go ahead and turn it over to District Counsel Tim Carmel. Item 6B is discussion and consideration of procedure to fill the vacancy of the CCSD Board of Directors created by the resignation of Director Michael Thompson.
Madam President, members of the board, sadly, Director Thompson has advised that he will be resigning from the board effective on August 31st. So under Government Code Section 1780C, the board can either appoint or call for an election, and it has 60 days to do so. There are no real procedural requirements in terms of a replacement, except for posting a notice of vacancy at least 15 days before the appointment. So this is an opportunity to discuss the process that the board wants to utilize to replace Director Thompson. And I personally will miss you a lot.
I think there's no small number of people in this town that feel the same way. So let's have some discussion about how we want to approach this, whether we want to do it as we've done it in for prior vacancies or something else. I see Director Berenger's light on, but I also want to give Director Thompson an opportunity if he would like.
Well, I was just going to suggest that we don't accept his resignation and then we'll just start that way.
Is that allowed?
Well, I don't have a speech prepared. I was telling some of the folks in the back of the room that the third Thursday on every month at 2:30 Austin, Texas time, I'll probably be tuning in to watch the activity going on here. It's been something that I've been very much interested in and involved with since I moved here 15 years ago, and I've enjoyed all my interaction with the various folks in town, Chamber of Commerce, the American Legion, and certainly the folks that are involved in this district. And there have been many things that have taken place over the last 7 years, and I'm pleased that we finally have started work on the community park, which is something that we committed to the county some 15 years ago or so. And I'm excited to see that happen. The strong support of the fire department, I think that's something that was evidenced when we had the public hearings several years ago, where we did take under consideration the notion of contracting with CAL FIRE, and certainly we got a strong indication of support from the community, and then the subsequent hiring of Chief Hollingsworth, I think, has been something that has really energized the department. You saw the folks here today, Captain Torlano and her crew, and with the new fire truck coming on, I just really think that the folks in this community treasure their department. I know that we saw a demonstration of their expertise on the Bridge Street fire, and their involvement with emergency services, I think, is something that the community is really proud of. I will miss, maybe I'm a masochist, but I will miss this board and the people in this community. I'm looking forward to playing more golf and doing more traveling, and so as of probably next Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll be riding off into the sunset, and I wish everyone the best. Thank you.
You're always welcome on my couch if you ever need a sofa to surf when you come back to visit. I hope some of the travel will be back here. Director Berenger, let's have a discussion now about how we're going to approach this. Director Berenger, I know you're going to get us right back on track.
I agree that we should proceed as we had in the past. An election would be expensive, and we're going to have one here in just about 14 months anyway. And so it says we have to be done by October 31st, but my suggestion is we do it with all due haste. We have to notify, have a 15-day notice. I would recommend that we direct staff to pick the first available date after the 15 days to hold a special meeting with a single agenda item, an open meeting with everybody, with a single agenda item of making an appointment to fill that position. As a process of that, to notice the fact that it's open is, in my opinion, good enough. People will know that the vacancy is available. They can apply a written response to apply, and I think that in an open meeting, each candidate should have an opportunity to present their qualifications or the way they would like to govern, so to speak, in Mr. Thompson's absence. I have a personal preference that I think that after Mr. Thompson is no longer officially a director, I'm sure that he knows some folks that would carry on the types of duties that he would like represented, and to me that would be an endorsement that I would seek. Other than that, from a process, I don't know how much more we have to outline.
Madam President.
Vice President Sanders.
I agree 100% with what Director Behringer just outlined for us.
So the steps, as I understand it, and from the staff report and my experience, we will make an application available. Folks will fill out the application, requirements being you live inside Cambria and you are over the age of 18. And you have to be registered to vote. So you can vote for yourself eventually. It's to fill the term, fill the remainder of Director Thompson's term, which ends next year, and so the person could theoretically run for office or not. So it's about a year-long commitment. I agree, expediency is important, so sometime in the middle of September, maybe the third week or something, so that we've got because it's August 31st, and then we have 2 weeks. And folks, would the deadline be, what would the deadline need to be for the applications so that we could get the applications? I think we need to work backwards from.
Prior?
Yeah, that they would be due a week prior, maybe? So that we can have the applications in enough time to be able to review them before we have the public meeting where we.
Again, I like to move things forward. So
I know.
I think that it would be unfair to, we have to put the notification out. We have 15 days to get the applications back. And I think we only need 2 days or so. So maybe if we looked at a calendar, we'd know.
Well, I think you have to have 72 hours because they would be, I mean, wouldn't we have the applications? It's a special meeting. Oh, okay, you're right. Thank you. So then 24
I guess
hours.
the only question that I'd have for the board is, whatever you feel comfortable with regards to having the time necessary to review those documents.
I just wanted to make sure that we had,
Yeah.
a day.
We can do whatever you guys want us to do. If you get, 1 or 2 applicants, then it'll be relatively easy to review those prior to the special board meeting. If you get 15 or 16, it may be a little more challenging. So just.
I can't imagine there's 16 people in this town that wants to join this board right now.
So I think if we made the announcement, or today or tomorrow, if we made the notice, we could have the applications received by the 8th. I'd have the weekend to take a look at them, and if we had a meeting like on the 12th or 13th or something, I think there'd be adequate time. That's just, I'm thinking out loud, or maybe you'd prefer longer, Mr. Sanders?
No, I thought there's a 15-day hiatus.
There is a 15-day, and we need time, too, to publish. I mean, I think it'd be a good idea, just a suggestion, to give Steve Provost, I mean, the Cambrian enough times to, so if they got it on a Monday or a Tuesday, they could have it in the Cambrian on that following Thursday. So I think it's, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think so.
Technical question? 15 days from the date of resignation?
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
That's the 31st, yeah. So if we made the announcement, on the 31st, or maybe the 1st.
So it looks like we could have, the third week would be the soonest that we could do it.
Right. One of my biggest concerns is that we have someone that has a few days prior to our next regular meeting.
Correct.
To get up to speed.
I agree.
And I'm hopeful to impanel somebody at that meeting so that we can take the
Well, I
work that we
think
have to
that's
do
the
and move it forward.
intention. Yeah. So the week of the 18th, do we have any idea schedule-wise for the availability of the Vets Hall? And is there a preference for the other directors of what that week? Monday works great for me. I mean, I'm happy with Monday. I know it's
Monday
agenda
works great
prep
for me,
week.
too.
The
I got poker
18th.
on Tuesday.
Oh, Monday's not a good day, though, for Harry, I don't think.
Oh, Mondays may never be good. Harry, could
Can
you
you do it
suggest
on
something?
Tuesday?
Tuesday, maybe?
Tuesday would be fine.
Tuesday, the 19th? Does that work for everybody?
Okay, I have a CTB meeting, but I can, a tourism board meeting, but I can be done by 1 o'clock. I'll make sure that I could be done early afternoon. So
Yeah, I
maybe
think,
2 o'clock?
yeah, 2 or 3 would be.
3 would better, even better?
Yeah.
Let's do it 3 o'clock, then maybe we get more people, perhaps.
Is the 19th, is the Vets Hall available?
Art Beat is in here, but I think we could probably get them to move to the dining room.
Or we can be in the small room, I don't
they're
know
in the
how that
dining
there
room,
will
my
be.
bad.
Okay, so we're going to not conflict. Okay, so 3 PM on the 19th, can staff please go forward with that? Do we need a motion, Mr. Carmel?
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we take the appropriate steps to make notifications so that we can review candidates to come to a special meeting and make a decision at a special meeting on September, what did we say?
19th.
19th at 3 PM.
And that would include solicitation of
And,
applications?
the announcement would solicit applications, and staff should prepare an application similar to what we've had in the past, available to all people desiring an application.
I second the motion.
It's been moved by Director Behringer, seconded by Vice President Sanders. I do have a couple of comment slips on this item. Harry, did you have, Director Farmer?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that, and folks may think, well, Harry, what's that all about? It's the final day of the lunar cycle on the 19th, and the new moon will begin on Wednesday. And you may think, well, that's a bit of silliness, Harry, but I think we might be better off doing it on the day of the new moon, than, which is a time of new beginnings, as opposed to doing it on the 19th, which would be literally the final hours of the old moon. And quite often when you do something on a date like that, you don't come to a very favorable conclusion. I'm just saying. You don't have to listen to me, I'm just
I'm going to
letting
take
you
a
know.
chance.
Me too. I'm sorry, I'm not into astrology.
I appreciate
But I appreciate
the
it. I
input.
appreciate it.
Also, the problem with the 20th is there's the NCAC meeting and Bruce Gibson's office hours. That's a very, very busy day for a lot of folks. It looks like there's knitting group, chess club, allied arts, film society. I mean, there's just a lot of things. So we're going to, 19th, and we're going to take some public comment. First up will be Don Howell, followed by Elizabeth Bettenhausen. Oh, sorry, no, that's for 6C, sorry. Don Howell, followed by Mel Doran. Mel Doran.
Okay. This is live? Okay. Yes, Don Howell. I've spoken here before, but I remind you, I've owned property here in Cambria for 20 years and have been a permanent resident for more than 15. It appears that the board has pretty much already made its mind on this matter, but I did want to weigh in a little bit. It seems to me that certainly I feel somewhat disturbed that the board has rebranded the emergency water facility. I think there are many of us in the community who really do feel rather strongly that there's been a bit of a bait and switch going on. I think by choosing the method which you appear to be choosing, you're foregoing a very, very good opportunity. The only time that the public has ever weighed in on these issues was the initial vote to allow the rate increase to go forward for the emergency water facility. There was no public vote in terms of changing it to rebranding it or applying for an EIR to run it permanently. So it is still, in fact, the public has not weighed in on this. And you are losing an excellent opportunity. At this point, you will have after Director Thompson resigns, and thank you for your long service, you are relatively evenly divided on the issues. And this would be a time when the public could weigh in if you went to an election. It would be a great opportunity to see which way the public wants to go on these issues, because the division is fairly clear amongst the five of you. the argument that the election would cost money doesn't really play well with me when you're spending huge amounts of money to buy a library building, and where there's some question as to whether it can be afforded. I don't think money really ought to be the consideration here. It seems to me this is an opportunity for the board to actually get some real input from the public, not just from the people who like to stand up here and talk to you. So that's the main thing. In closing, again, thank you, Director Thompson, for your service. I did want to make one comment just to you regarding your utility bills. We must remember that everyone except the CCSD is making a profit, and that might explain part of why the bills are so high. Anyway, thank you.
Mel Doran, followed by Tina Dickinson.
Just before you take a vote on this, there was an election in this town 10 months ago, not even. We have a list of candidates and the amount of votes that they got. And all of you have, on one occasion or another, stated that you're very proud of the number of votes that you got, so you like the democratic process. So why not go to that list, go down the list, take the next person in line and appoint that person. Very easy. You don't have to go through all this administrative rigmarole. The election's already been held. Second, the comment that was made to Director Farmer that he was grandstanding is totally inappropriate. You should apologize for it.
Well, I'm not going to apologize. So, Mr. Doran, then you would be advocating the appointment of Gail Robinette?
I'm advocating you go down the list.
Well, she was the next highest vote getter.
Yeah, from what I understand, she's retired. I think she has health problems.
I don't know that she has health problems, but maybe we should approach her and ask her if she'd like.
It's an alternative suggestion. You have the next member who is here, even in the audience. So just proposing it. I have no objection to anything you're saying, except to your comment.
Tina Dickinson.
My contention. First of all, Director Thompson, you and I have hardly ever agreed on anything, ever. But I still... Touché. But let me have my time, please. But I would still, with all due respect, thank you for your service to the community in various ways that you have served. And I thank you for that, and I wish you well as you move on into your sunset years, as you mentioned. I would have liked to have seen, by the way, a letter of resignation in the staff packet. Since we've got this agenda item, don't see it, but I'm assuming there will be one, so it is official. I really take offense with Director Behringer's comments that he has a personal preference and that he knows some folks, and that he also referred to Director Thompson as knowing others, and that it's an endorsement that he would seek. That's not a democratic process. You have no business telling us that you have a personal preference in this. That's outrageous. As a board member, you should know better. But that's obviously not the case. I think that however this is handled, it needs to be fair with no preconceived conditions. That whoever applies, and I have no idea who's going to apply, but they looked at fairly. There are only 3 requirements that they have to fulfill to apply. And I think that for once, we need to have someone that's not a crony that is appointed, as we've seen in the last 2 situations. So please, let us see some fairness in this process. I thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ms. Dickinson. All right, we've had a motion and a second. Is there any other further comment? All right, let's call the roll, please. The motion was by Director Behringer, seconded by Vice President Sanders.
Director Behringer?
Aye.
Vice President Sanders?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Thompson?
I abstain.
President Rice?
Aye. The vote is 4-0 to 1 abstention. Thank you very much for the conversation.
Yes, Madam President and board members. Item 6C is it's the last agenda item. It's the provide the CCSD Board of Directors with an update on the progress of the 4 goals adopted by the Board of Directors. I did my best on this. To be honest with you, I struggled a little bit with it because I haven't really had the opportunity to sit down with the board and discuss this particular item in an open session format. Because I can tell you where I think we are, but it's important, I think, to hear from you where you think we are. So I have the information down, I think on the 4 goals. The first one was review mission statement and the mission of the district, including a town meeting prior to the end of the first quarter to address the mission statement for the district. I'd really like to see this happen. We talk about workshops. Maybe it could be a 2-item workshop, and we could include this one in. The second one is ensure current deliveries of efficiency, adequate levels of service within the current revenue and environmental constraints, starting with discussions on how we define efficiency and adequate. I touched on this, and I thought that I hopefully addressed the needs of the board and covered the area in which I thought we were doing a good job in. Support the development of future resiliency and sustainability in district operations, personnel, and infrastructure. Again, I addressed some of the progress we're making on this, and then build on communication and participation opportunities for the community and outside agencies. And again, I wrote a couple paragraphs on where I think we are on these particular items. Since we're about halfway through the calendar year, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, more than that. We're eight months. God, time flies. I just need some guidance on where you think we might want to go with this, and hope that I captured, your interpretation of the goals and did a good job on this. But if you want me to come back with this item and go into more detail, I'd be more than happy to, because I just don't. I'll be honest with you, I don't think I captured the essence of the board's goals in their entirety. I think there needs to be some discussion, more deliberation, and some more guidance maybe to me and staff. And we want to make sure that we're doing what was outlined for us, and we're interpreting those goals properly. It's important to us, and I just don't want to make sure we're all on the same page, I guess. Thank you.
Since I kind of crafted these, they were approved by the board, but when I crafted them was at the very beginning of the year, and there has been so much going on. Having the extra meetings, we've had to have very long meetings, and having extra meetings to do things like board policy and direction going forward. I think that's our job. And we've had so many things we've had to deal with over the last 8 months. I don't think it would have been realistic to try to have workshops relating to the vision, but I think it's critical, because if we don't have a clear idea of an agreement on what our mission and what the vision is for going, what's the big picture here that we're trying to get to? Because, and I completely concur that you need more direction, and we haven't had the opportunity to provide it. I think the community would like to be involved in some of those discussions too, because having a very clear statement about what it is that we do and what we're trying to get to would have helped us a lot, like, say, for example, in purchasing the library, because it would give us an idea of where that fits in the big picture of things. So with a new board member coming on board, that might be just the time to be having some of those discussions under number 1. And I would definitely like to hear from the rest of the board regarding this, because this is the board goals, not the general manager's goals. Right. This is for the board.
I agree. And,
Director Berenger.
I agree, and number 1 never happened, and there has been some movement on the other items, I'm not sure, I think they need to be refined quite a bit. Some things have been done, we got to determine whether in fact that was what we were really trying to do. I think if we do appoint a replacement for Mr. Thompson, there needs to be some time for us to address these again. So I'm suggesting that we table this until January. However, I think that the item we brought up earlier, if in fact the Board of Supervisors approves the purchase of the library, perhaps rather than having a vision statement meeting, town meeting, we have a town meeting of all of the stakeholders of the organizations in town to make the most effective use of the library. That'll also give us some feedback on other issues, but if we stick on the vision for the library would be great. I would hope that we could schedule that for October. So we have a town meeting in October and we can get the pulse of people at least concerning the library. So that would be my suggestion. Table this item, or addressing this item until January. And
Which would be after the year where the goals were set.
well, we'll set them for next year then. I mean, or whatever, or maybe they're a whole different set of goals. I mean, what we're trying to do is, unless you think that we can slog through these. I'm just
Again,
hoping
I'm trying to get an opportunity for the board to have these kinds of discussions to help us understand better when there's these deferments in the infrastructure, and we don't have a very clear set of priorities we've given the general manager in terms of where it's important to be putting the resources, whether it's financial or human resources or any of the other things that he's responsible to manage. I think that we need to, under these goals, which the purpose of which was to then come back and look at them closer and say, how do we make sure that, what is it that we're doing, that we make sure that we have adequate service and that we make sure that we're doing the right thing, like in just checking for leaks, these little things. Because having no priorities, there's so much going on, it's hard to know what things the attention needs to be placed on, and that's kind of part of the role of the board.
Yeah, are you saying that we should have had a goal of checking for leaks all the time? I know you were much higher. I would be interested in the other directors' input, and if there's any public comment, I'd be interested in that too.
I think we need to give some priorities. Vice President Sanders, did you have?
Well, I just wanted to speak to goal, I guess it is, number 2, and how impressed I am with the way our staff responds to emergencies. It's extraordinary, and that goes from the general manager on down. We've had some serious issues that go from a very serious fire very close to town, which required an extraordinary effort, and the effort was A+, to an extraordinary leak behind the Bluebird Motel. The effort was A+, and lots of other emergencies that have cropped up over the course of this year, and I just think the response has been excellent.
And to that point, I completely agree. Maybe if we set a priority of not deferring maintenance on things like tanks and being able to put the cameras through the collection system rather than balanced budget, having that discussion before we went into the budgeting process may have made that more clear about which priority was most important to the board. So I think these are good goals. I just think that we haven't had an opportunity. It was February, the beginning of February, when the regional board stuff began. So we didn't get, I don't want to say we were sidetracked, because we were tracked back to where we needed to be, but we really need to, as a board, I think it's important that we let the general manager do his job, but also make sure that the priorities are clear for what the district is trying to accomplish in all of the many things we're trying to do.
President Rice, can I comment on this? If you look at the general manager's comments. The Facilities and Resources Department is fully staffed based upon available revenues. A continued emphasis on infrastructure needs to be a priority, and a funding mechanism needs to address infrastructure deficiencies. Currently, the Waste Department needs 2 full-time employees to operate and maintain the collection system. The 6 years, going on 7 years of us not matching the revenue from water and wastewater to the cost is our problem. And if I had one, I think number 3 is the most important thing. It is the most important thing to address this. And, Madam President, the shock that is facing us is that a balanced budget, which is the right thing to do. You go to a conference, they tell you you have to have a balanced budget, but balancing it on the cost, on the backs of the Water and Wastewater Department not getting what they need, it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse. The horse should have been, let's make sure our rates can support it, and I think Director Farmer would agree with me. Other than the color of money issue, there is a little thing that where you have to have water and wastewater revenue to support those 2 departments. There's no other way around it.
I completely agree with that, and since we knew it was going to be a while, being able to have some policy in place for using property taxes temporarily would have been a good discussion to be able to have. Like I said, it's been a hectic year. Director Farmer and then Vice President Sanders.
Well, I think I'm just going to concur. This is a comment that I was going to make. I'm just going to concur with Director Beringer with regard to my disappointment. You know, continued emphasis on infrastructure improvements needs to be a priority. Obviously, that didn't take place with regard to the Stewart Street tank. And with regard to wastewater, continued emphasis on infrastructure improvements needs to be a priority. And we essentially eliminated all the capital improvements projects that were going to take place this year. By the way, I'm not going to read these, but I came prepared. I got these definitions out of the library for efficient and adequate, as well as resiliency and sustainability. We'll save that for another time. Thank you.
Vice President Sanders.
I just want to concur with what Director Beringer said. I, in a previous life, spent several years working on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and the debate around the budget is whether policy drives money or money drives policy. And the reason that the feds can have that debate is because if there's a deficit, the federal government just prints more money. Well, we're a small local government agency and we don't have that luxury. So here, money has to drive policy. And if you want to set policies about repairing infrastructure, building in new infrastructure, et cetera, you have to have the money to do it. And that will be the most significant challenge of the district going forward, I think.
Agreed.
So the question is, how do we move forward from here? Do you want to spend the time now to refine these?
Well,
or
I want to hear from General Manager Gruber.
Okay.
I think one of the pluses that we have is working with the Infrastructure Committee is we've identified the priorities relating to water and wastewater. And I don't want to minimize the amount that's been identified. It's roughly around, $13-14 million to bring everything up to speed to where we need to be. There's a neighboring community that is looking at $175 million. There's and this is not that unique to Cambria. I served at a previous district as general manager, and we did a water master plan, and it identified $54 million in infrastructure improvement. So what we're looking at is doable. We just have to have a roadmap in which how to get there. And it doesn't have to be immediate. I know we've deferred a lot of things, but if you look at this over a 5 or 10 year period of time, it's doable. It's doable.
I think it might be good to to just even go back to the basics of what services are we providing through fire, through water, whatever it is. But I don't know that with the current staffing and the current ability of directors to attend things, like if we were to have, say, I know Templeton CSD did a public workshop that was essentially, the public was invited to come and make public comment, but it was essentially a day-long retreat for the board to kind of hash through some of where are our priorities, what should the priorities of the district be. I mean, in an ideal world, I would love to see something like that happen. I'm not talking about building some kind of crazy strategic plan that goes on a shelf. I'm talking about something that's gives us an opportunity to really set forth what it is this district does. I mean, can you tell me what the mission statement is? I can't tell you, and I'm board president.
One thing I wanted
Gruber?
to remember Michael about, Director Thompson, is Michael's brought up, this is last day, so Michael's brought up several times the last couple years is that we are the government agency in town. And you can look at our latent powers, and those latent powers says we're this, this, and this, and this. But many members of the community look to us for so much more, to interface, to negotiate on their behalf. And it's easy to say, okay, we're only going to do this, this, and this. But when the phone rings, whether it's a call to you or a call to me, and an issue needs to be addressed, we historically have always got involved. Do we want to continue to do that? I think it's what sets us apart. We are the government agency in Cambria. Now, we have to be careful that we don't, overextend ourselves. But I think that's the one good thing about the CCSD. There's many good things, but the one good thing that resonates in my mind is if somebody calls you or calls me and it doesn't fall, quote, within our latent powers, and there's something we can do to help a situation or facilitate a solution to it by working with other government agencies, we've done that. And so I realize that we are a water, sewer, parks, recreation, open space, and fire. But we're involved in so many other things, and frankly, we have to be, and we've chose to be. And I don't see, as part of our vision, choosing not to be that active government agency within the community, because people depend on us. They really do.
Agreed, and a set of priorities would also be helpful, I think, because you do have limited resources and staff. And I'm not feeling a whole lot of yippee-doos here for doing some kind of actual discussion at the board level of how we go forward on that, and I'm okay with that as a member of the board, because this is a team sport, not a solo venture. I just would urge us to be cognizant that that some of our troubles are partially related to the fact that we have not had these discussions, so that we're clear, partially because of potential Brown Act violations that we would have if we didn't do it as a public meeting, and there's a lot of issues around that. So I would like to say that I am heartened by what the Pros Commission, which is that's a standing committee. They are really overseeing this park project, and I'm really impressed by that. Why don't we have a citizens committee that's looking at utilities? So they could be overseeing, why the heck is the influence screen $300,000 all of a sudden? Because they're already informed about what's going on, they've been involved in, and so they kind of are already knowledgeable in a way. They gain knowledge as that's exactly what I think we should be doing for both fire and utilities, is to have something like Pros. And I know that it can be a workload for our staff, but I do think that it's part of the reason why the park's actually moving along. So besides having really qualified staff that are on top of it, I think it's part of why this is actually getting done as it is. So, that's kind of, if we could go that direction, I'd be happy with it. As far as today, I'm not hearing a lot of excitement for that direction, but I am hearing the general manager asking for some. Vice President Sanders?
Well, I don't think you'll get any argument from me that what you propose, generally speaking, is not a good idea. I think it's a great idea, but kind of like life in general, sometimes the fates dictate what you have to do. And so we have two big issues on our plate right now. We've got the Regional Water Quality Control Board in compliance with the cease and desist order, and we've got an environmental impact report that has been certified, and we will, within a few months, be before the County Planning Commission on a permanent permit for the coastal development permit for the sustainable water facility. So the fates have kind of dictated where our time has been spent, where our resources have been spent. And it's kind of like a Greek tragedy, you know, man is not in control of his fate.
I don't want to be part of a Greek tragedy. I want to be part of something more successful.
Yeah, exactly. It just so happens that we've got those two items that have come simultaneously. I think we can think short range and we can think long range. We can do both at the same time. I would propose that we do set some short range priorities and that we also consider some long range priorities. And I think if we do it that way, we can give some real specific direction to the staff in terms of where we expect their time and attention to be spent.
Do you have an idea of how we might go about doing that?
Well, I think it's incumbent upon the executive committee, which would be the president and the vice president, to bring a recommendation back to the board. And so perhaps you and I, Madam President, can sit down and hash something out and bring it back to the board.
Can we do it after
shortly.
September 1st? I think I've made
Sure.
15 meetings this month alone.
Not a problem. Absolutely.
If that's acceptable to the other board members to start that way and come back with a recommendation.
I support that recommendation.
Director Farmer, do you have thoughts on that? And we have some public comment slips too.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I think Director Sanders just commented on it's kind of like a Greek tragedy, and man is not in charge of his own fate. I believe the decisions made by this board are what are creating our fate. The two items he brought up, I believe, the need for the dismantling of the impoundment basin and the EIR and moving that forward. These are things that we've created, these situations, and whatever happens with those and other things down the line that are our fate are probably the result of decisions that have been made by this board, and that's how I feel.
Well, Madam President, let me say I was speaking metaphorically, but certainly the storms of last winter were not something that this board decided to have happen.
Yeah. Director Thompson, it's easiest for you. Would you like to weigh in on this at all?
I'm just enjoying myself.
Okay. In case you couldn't hear him, he's just enjoying himself over there. All right. I was hoping maybe you'd have some input, but we'll take you relax, and that's fine. So what's going to happen, it looks like, is Vice President Sanders and I will come put our heads together. And how big of a bottle of wine do you want to?
Do we have public comment?
I got a couple of comment slips before we leave this item, and I'd like to hear from Elizabeth Bettenhausen, followed by Tina Dickinson.
Thank you, Madam President. We could have a huge debate about whether it's tragedy or comedy, or perhaps a mix. I really was intrigued reading this. I love the claims of superiority when I see them because they remind me of somebody who's sometimes in the White House. I would like to raise the issue. About money and policy interacting, as I think Vice President Sanders helpfully said. But money and policy interact only if you have a clear set of priorities, because if you don't have a clear set of priorities to guide that interaction, if you don't have policy, then you don't know what criteria you're going to use to make the judgments between policy and money, other than two things that have been consistently used by this board: emergencies driving you to act, and the fandom of consultanthood, which is a big fandom, I have to say. And whether you ever bring back an analysis of your previous decisions to see whether they in fact accomplished your priorities, I have never ever seen a board do that, ever in 15 years. Now, I'm sure that you, Executive Committee, in your ad hocness and your secrecy, can deliberate and then bring to us, the public, for some deliberations as to what. I want to ask you to use one guideline. Please do not imagine that the CCSD Board of Directors is like a city council. You are not the government of this town. You are the organizer of the policy and fiscal responsibility of the utilities and parks, and to a degree, fire department. Please do not assume that you can do, as a district, what city councils do, and all the encumbrances that are attached onto. You are a little dinky town here. Thank you, Dora, add the exclamation point. I live in a little dinky town, and if you could only admit, hey, we're dinky. We try to do way too much without enough money. We ought to stop and think about that and maybe cut back. I think it would be a great advance for this community to say, hold it a second, let's not act so big. Let's act sort of littler. And maybe our efficiency is a little less than we thought. Maybe adequacy is only 1/5 of what we thought we would do. Until you get that clear in your heads, we're going to have the incorporation model hovering over us like an aura, and we're going to have the meme of tweeting at every meeting with the same incantations that we've heard before. So please, think about how service could be a crucial thing to the public by saying, hold it a second, let's not try to do so much.
Thank you. Tina Dickinson is my last request to speak on this item.
Well, Tina Dickinson, tragedy, comedy, I would say travesty. The board should not be looking in August of this year at what their mission is, for heaven's sakes. You should all know what that is. And to think that you're looking at goals as we're approaching the end of the year is quite remarkable. I mean, your job, you were elected to do a job. You were elected to set policy, and Mr. Gruber and the admin were there to take on, especially for the general manager, the job of what a general manager should be and what is required of a general manager. He has been given a great deal of levity, more than any general manager that I'm familiar with in this district. I don't understand, yes.
Great deal of levity? That's what you said.
In
He's
that
been given a great deal of levity. Do you mean latitude?
Latitude, I'm sorry. Thank you for picking up on that. Latitude, not levity. Okay, so I'm wondering, why are we here today looking at this item? This is what you were elected to do. But instead of doing the sensible things, you are doing things that are way beyond, and I agree with Dr. Bettenhausen, way beyond what a little town of 6,000 should be doing. You've taken on way too much. And because you've taken on way too much, namely the EWS, and what it has cost this town, because you put the cart before the horse, you didn't do what Director Behringer said initially, let's do some kind of emergency portable decel. That would have gotten us through fine. We didn't even need the water. We wasted 134 acre-feet in the tracer test twice. So I'm going to just say that To me, this item, I don't know, it seems to me you just don't know how to do your jobs, and if you don't come to the community, we're not a part of what you want for this community. You make the decisions behind closed scenes, and then you bring it up to us when you're ready to vote. So, yes, I would like to see more of a Templeton idea here. That would be great, because there's a district in this county that's working. But it is, I don't know what it's going to take for the CCSD to get its act together. The admin is getting paid very, very well. And I'll tell you one thing, if you do decide to keep the general manager, and if you do decide to give him a raise, all hell will break loose, I think, in this town. Thank you.
I have one more request
One more,
to
okay.
speak. Jerry McKinnon.
Oh, good.
Thank you for your... No, please come, please come.
Red Light District. Jerry McKinnon, Cambria. For the 40 years that I've lived here, I think there was a period of time when we gave serious consideration of incorporating. We thought about becoming a city. From my recollection, the difference between a city and a community services district are only two areas. One is law enforcement. As a community services district, we may not enforce laws as an entity. And number two is zoning.
Planning.
We may not zone property. Those are left to the county. So whatever you undertake as a community services district, from my recollection of the difference between an incorporated area and a community services district, were only those two. So if you want to spread your wings and take on more responsibility and think you can do a good job at it, be my guest. Thank you.
In fact, if I may, I think District Council will confirm that the government code allows community services districts to do law enforcement. So really, the only difference between a community services district and a city is the planning function. Well, I'm not suggesting that we take it on, but you read the government code and you'll find that community services districts and cities are pretty much the same animal.
And I would like to speak to something that Ms. Dickinson said, because I think it's important to note there's one reason why I wanted to have something like this on the agenda, and it is August. It's near the end. I mean, we've only got 4 months left. It takes time to move things forward. And yeah, we haven't been doing our jobs because we've been busy chasing down the NOVs. We've been trying to make sure that we're getting the leaks taken care of. And I think it's important the community recognizes there's a lot of things that we need to be doing that we just don't frankly have time for. And I'm not going to speak for the other directors because we're a team and not solo, which is one of the both good and bad sides of being on a board, any board. And I think it's incumbent upon the board to recognize our strengths and weaknesses, and this is an area that we haven't been picking up what we should be picking up so that we can make sure that we have a community services district everybody in town can be proud of. That's all I'm saying. Director Berenger?
Yes, I agree with, that we should have been more focused on this. However, on agenda item number 6C, I move that we move forward with the executive committee coming back with detailed short and long-term goals and move on to the next item.
Second the motion.
So it's been moved and seconded that the executive committee will take on the task of looking at short and long-term goals. Is there any discussion on that before we take a vote? Let's have a roll call, please. Moved by Director Berenger, seconded by Vice President Sanders.
Director Berenger?
Aye.
Vice President Sanders?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Thompson?
I'll abstain on this issue also.
President Rice?
Aye. All right, item 6D, we just have two little items left.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 6D is discussion and consideration of amending the Board of Directors bylaws to limit duration of board meeting directors' meetings. And District Council Tim Carmel will present this and go over the staff report. Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, Madam President, you requested that this item be brought forward, and that's to establish a time limit on the duration of meetings. It's a fairly common practice, as we all know. Long meetings can really, and fatigue can really wear you down mentally, and your acuity tends to erode, and your thinking process can get pretty dull. Jerry's wondering, where am I? And it's a short meeting. So there are many options as to how to go forward with this. 4 to 5 hours is somewhat conventional because you really do sort of break down after 5 hours. And then in terms of going past that, you can do that with a plain, simple majority vote, supermajority vote. You can do it unanimity. Arroyo Grande's I have in front of me because I'm familiar with it. Business at regular session should be conducted from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. only, unless extended by unanimous consent of the city council members present. So they require unanimity because I guess the theory is if any one of you isn't thinking clearly, it affects the whole of the deliberations. Beyond that, you may want to consider how to address items that are left on the agenda. I don't think that's necessarily critical because normally you do that anyway and you try to schedule the important items early, but that's something you may want to just discuss. And then once you come to a consensus, we'll bring back a bylaw that embodies whatever you choose.
Okay, since I did ask for this item on the agenda, my thinking was something similar to the way I've seen the Board of Supervisors do when they get near 5 o'clock. They have to have a motion to go past 5. I'm kind of looking for something along that lines, like we set a time, say 4 o'clock if it's a 12:30 meeting, that if we go past that time, and if it's less than a 4-hour period, then I don't think we need unanimity, but anything past 4 hours, I would want to have it at least a supermajority, just because, I mean, we all know, these folks all know, it gets tiring to be here. Even the people watching this later on TV know that these meetings are kind of grueling, and I'm sorry, public service should not be grueling. It might be difficult, but it shouldn't be grueling. So that's kind of what I was asking this item for. I'd like to hear what the other directors think.
Well, Madam President, first of all, I have some suggestions as to how the meetings can be made to go at a faster clip. And I'll share those with you after the meeting today. Secondly, since we vary the time that we start our meetings, I think a time limit, not a specific time, would be the most appropriate way to go. And I'm prepared to support your idea if you want to make it into a motion.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts? I tend to agree because we have different times, start times. I'm thinking 3.5 or 4, if anybody.
3.5, oh, I think 4 is easily
4?
doable.
Okay.
And
well, but that's just because you've been doing it for so many years.
well, also it's easy just to say, okay, we only have a few more items, we can add it.
Okay.
And another issue that wasn't said is I was hoping that we could incorporate the fact that it moves to the next day certain. In other words, okay, we'll put this off to tomorrow, but I think our schedules may not allow that, and the facility may not allow that. But I'd like to see something that come back that doesn't stretch it out to the to the next regular meeting. I think people have certain business they need to occur, and so maybe when we do vote
It'll be more
not to
important
extend
what
it,
order.
that in extending it, we agree to when we're extending it to, so that at that meeting. And I don't like the idea of unanimous. I think supermajority gives you 4 people, so that one person that might be tired. I'm sure the supermajority would be sensitive to somebody maybe being too tired, and just wouldn't happen that way. So those are my suggestions, and we're just waiting for something to come back, and I move that we proceed that way.
I agree. A supermajority is great. I spent a long time being 1 against 4, so sometimes that's not always the greatest. if it were 5 hours we were going with, I'd say unanimity. 4 hours, I'm okay with the supermajority. Mr. Carmel, for amending the bylaws, I'm good with incorporating the suggestions made by Director Berenger, and unless there's objection from any of the other directors regarding setting a date certain if we do decide to adjourn a meeting because it's past 4 hours, and that the fact that we vote on it gives us an opportunity, if we got one item left, we can.
Yep. Well, that'll be an adjourned regular meeting, so it's actually better that way.
Okay. Then that, I make that motion that we give this to staff to craft that language.
And I'll pass it by you before we bring it back.
I'll second that. However, could it be that instead of adjourning the meeting, that we continue it?
Well, it is continued. It's just referred to as an adjourned regular meeting. That's the name that's given to it.
It is, okay, all right. Because I thought if we continue it, then
That
we don't have to do
technical legal.
noticing, we don't have to do all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But we would probably have to notice and
Right.
everything else. Yeah, okay.
We'd still renotice it.
And we'd want to have a procedure for noticing that it's been, some of the items have been continued. I expect that our council will be able to bring that back for us. Motion in the second moved by President Rice and seconded by Director Berenger.
Go for it.
Please call the roll.
I'd like to just make one comment.
Oh, please.
But
Sorry, Director Farmer,
No, it's not a
please.
problem. No need to be sorry. I just want to say that there are some districts that actually have 2 meetings a month, and therefore they're much shorter. I also want to comment, we're talking about, clarity, thinking clearly after a certain amount of time. I believe if you polled the members of this community, they probably think that they'd say that, well, there's people on the board that aren't thinking clearly as soon as they sit down with them. So, which is a bit of a problem for all of us. I just want to throw that out.
Well, 4 hours is about the length of a football game, right? We all can seem to hang into the hour, as long as there's a halftime, right? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
President Rice?
Yes?
Director Berenger?
Aye.
Vice President Sanders?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Thompson?
Abstain.
Thank you. We have this last item. This is the item that we added at the very beginning of the meeting to approve this letter supporting the grant for, on behalf of the Upper Salinas Las Tablas Conservation, Resource Conservation District. Yes. Director Thompson.
I'd like to make one last motion, and that's that we support this letter to the in support of the Central Coast Salmon Enhancement Augmentation In-Stream Flow Project.
This is your swan song, Director Thompson? Oh, my God.
I second. His light wasn't
I
on.
wasn't fast enough. I'm not thinking clearly. So.
May I just say, I certainly support the motion, but I suggest, Madam President, before you sign it, you proofread it, because there
You
are
got it.
a couple of typos in it.
Of course, I don't like putting my signature on something that has some, can I have your red line? You got a couple of notes on there, I can, all right. So it's been moved by Director Thompson and seconded by me. I don't have any comment slips, so let's have a roll call, please.
Director Thompson?
Aye.
President Rice?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Director Berenger?
Aye.
Vice President Sanders?
Aye.
Aye. Good, that passes 5-0. And I would, we do have public comment on, we have future agenda items. Future agenda item suggestions?
Don't have any.
Nothing? Director Thompson? Just checking. We are going to adjourn to closed session. Before that, though, I do have a request for public comment on that item from Elizabeth Bettenhausen. On the closed session?
People are leaving. I just have a very quick question. On 8B, I'm questioning I don't understand quite what the legal language means. It's just like I didn't understand when Vice President Sanders said, quote, "We will still probably be in a legal position where we are going to have to lift the moratorium," end quote. I don't know what that means, and I asked him, and I certainly have read that report that they called the Water Master Plan, so I'll go back and see if I can't search out the meaning of the legal position. But here, I would, on 8B, it says initiation of litigation. I know what those words mean. My question is, does that mean to tell us, community, that the CCSD is initiating, or that someone else is initiating the litigation? Is there any clarity there? If there is, I would very much like to know it. Thank you.
Mr. Carmel?
That's the safe harbor description required by the Brown Act, and it's litigation that's initiated by the district.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carmel. All right. Thank you very much for attending. We are going to adjourn to closed session.